Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Michelle O'Keefe. Michelle O'Keefe grew up in Hanford, California. Her parents, Michael and Patricia, were very proud of their two children. Michelle did well in school and pursued her dream of becoming an actress after graduating from high school. However, her bright future took a tragic turn in February 2000. On February 22, Michelle and her friend Jennifer traveled to Los Angeles to be extras in a music video. They arrived in separate cars and parked near a park. Michelle left her newly purchased blue Mustang and drove with Jennifer to Los Angeles. At 9:30 p.m., both girls returned to the park to pick up their cars and leave. Jennifer watched Michelle start the engine, turn on the headlights, and noticed that the taillights were on, indicating that Michelle was preparing to back up. As Jennifer drove down the street, she was surprised to see that the Mustang was not moving right behind her. Thinking that Michelle would soon catch up, Jennifer left the park and headed home. After that night, she would never see her friend again. That evening, a new security guard named Raymond Jennings, 25, began his shift at the park at 8:00 p.m. About an hour and a half into his shift, Raymond became alarmed and contacted his boss on the radio. He had heard an explosion coming from the west side of the parking lot, along with a car alarm. Raymond asked to call the police. Before the police arrived, they found a Ford Mustang parked in the center lane. The keys were still in the ignition, the engine and headlights were still on, and the manual transmission was in neutral. Inside the car, Michelle was sitting in the driver's seat. The deputy sheriff was the first to arrive on the scene. He determined that Michelle had died from her injuries. He also spoke with Raymond. When asked if he saw anyone leave the parking lot immediately after the explosion, Raymond replied that he did not see anyone get out after hearing the alarm and the explosion. Raymond then pointed to the shell casings, indicating that the bullets were found from the location of the Mustang. The driver's door was open, and the window was partially rolled down. A pair of black jeans was on the passenger seat. One of Michelle's shoes was on her right foot, while the other was on the ground. Police also found a gold earring on the ground. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office found that 5 shots were fired from the same 9mm gun. Police investigated, and there was no evidence that Michelle had any enemies. Her closest friends said she had no problems with her boyfriend and could not identify anyone who wanted to harm her. Police considered the possibility that Michelle was the victim of a robbery or attempted carjacking, especially since her cell phone was missing. The last call she made was to her friend Jennifer, just minutes before she got into the car. It is likely that the killer took her cell phone, but her wallet and $100 were still in the car, found between the center console and the driver's seat. Jennifer said, "Michelle felt uncomfortable going to college that night in the outfit she wore in the music video because it was a little revealing. She planned to change her clothes before returning to campus." Raymond told police 3 times that he did not see anyone else in the parking lot at the time of the crime, making him the prime suspect. Raymond is a father of 5 and has served in the California National Guard. He was working toward becoming a U.S. Marshal. As a key witness in the murder investigation, Raymond was eager to assist. Police invited him to the station for interviews several times, which he gladly accepted. During the interviews, his statements seemed inconsistent and lacked credibility compared to what had already been established. Raymond said that when he arrived at the crime scene, Michelle was still alive. He claimed that her hands were moving or twitching, which made him think she was not dead. However, the medical examiner's findings contradicted Raymond's testimony. Michelle died instantly from her injuries. Police identified Raymond as the prime suspect, largely based on the belief that he was the only person present in the parking lot during the crime. 2 weeks after the murder, a woman named Victoria told police that she and 4 people in her car had witnessed the murder. At the time of the murder, Victoria was in the parking lot listening to loud music. She and her friends heard an explosion. Just before the explosion, Victoria noticed a security guard walking past her parked car toward Michelle. After hearing the explosion and the car alarm, she and her friends left the parking lot and found Michelle dead in the car. As they left, Victoria spoke to the security guard and asked him what had happened. He said that have heard gunshots, prompting the entire group to leave the parking lot. Police believe Raymond was the person seen near the Mustang at the time of the murder. Raymond later cooperated with the investigation, participating in an interview and agreeing to take a lie detector test, which he ultimately failed. At this point in the investigation, police believed they had identified the killer, but they lacked concrete evidence. The murder weapon had disappeared from the scene, and there was no physical evidence linking Raymond to the crime. Although Raymond legally owned a semi-automatic pistol, it was not the weapon used in the murder, stalling the investigation for years. During this time, Michelle's family hired a private investigator determined to find justice for Michelle. While the case was still under investigation, Raymond was deployed to Iraq. Upon his return 5 years later, he was arrested for Michelle's murder. Unable to post his $1 million bail, he remained in custody for nearly a year while the prosecution and defense prepared for trial. A devoted father of 5 and twice married, most of Raymond's family lived in North Carolina, but he had moved to California for better job opportunities. He considered himself a devout man and had helped a friend distribute Christian music CDs. Despite these qualities and his lack of criminal record, he was now charged with murder. During the trial, the defense pointed to the lack of forensic evidence linking Raymond to the crime. Raymond's DNA was not found in the car or on Michelle, and DNA found under her fingernails did not match his. There were no fingerprints, gun residue, or blood evidence linking Raymond. His car was searched for weapons, none were found. He resigned from his position as a park ranger shortly after the incident. While on patrol, he was approached by 2 men who threatened him and asked if he was the guard on duty the night of the murder, which made him feel unsafe and prompted him to resign. He returned his uniform, which was later turned over to the police by the security guard. However, the lab report found that the uniform was simply dirty and that Raymond had not even attempted to wash it before returning it. Importantly, the uniform showed no blood, gunpowder, or other physical evidence implicating Raymond in the shooting. Victoria testified that she had seen a security guard next to the Mustang in the parking lot. The prosecution exaggerated this testimony, claiming that Raymond had been at the scene of the murder just minutes before the shooting. After a week of deliberations, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous decision and announced that the trial would be retried. In February 2009, a second trial took place in California, but the jury again failed to reach a unanimous decision. This time, however, 11 jurors voted to convict, while only 1 juror dissented. Michelle's murder had been widely reported in the media for many years. Victoria was deemed ineligible to attend because she was serving time for other crimes, so her testimony was read in court. In December 2009, a third jury found Raymond Jennings guilty of second-degree murder. At the sentencing hearing, Michelle's family pleaded with the judge to impose the maximum sentence on the killer. Michelle's younger brother, who had confronted Raymond at his home after many years, urged him to take responsibility for his actions. Raymond responded by declaring his innocence. Raymond found peace in his life because he felt no guilt. He did not kill Michelle. Raymond was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Nearly 10 years into his sentence, Raymond still maintained his innocence, but his appeals had run out. He sought help from the state's Innocence Project, but progress was slow, and without new key evidence, it seemed unlikely that Raymond would be released for years. Raymond's situation improved when civil defense attorney Jeff Ehrlich took on Raymond's case in 2011. After reviewing all the evidence from 3 trials and police records, Jeff concluded that Raymond had been wrongly convicted. They acknowledged that the original investigation was flawed and decided to gather new evidence by consulting with their own experts. They submitted their findings to the newly formed Sentencing Review Unit. A key piece of evidence was the report that the lack of gunpowder residue on Raymond's jacket cuffs suggested he was not the killer. Ballistics evidence shows the 9mm weapon used to kill Michelle is similar to the weapon used by Bloods gang members in recent shootings. Victoria's social media posts suggest she was involved with the Bloods. In the years following Michelle's murder, Victoria had a history of violent crimes. She was arrested several times for assault with a weapon, one of which resulted in her boyfriend, Andrew, being convicted. At the time of Michelle's murder, Andrew was also a member of the Bloods. 4 months after the murder, he was involved in robberies, including the theft of a Ford Mustang. He used the same weapon used to kill Michelle. When Andrew was arrested in June 2000, he was wearing an earring that matched the description of an earring that belonged to Michelle that was missing from the crime scene. However, Andrew was never questioned about Michelle's murder, and the identities of the people in the SUV with Victoria were never determined. On January 23, 2017, a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge overturned Raymond's conviction, finding him innocent. He served 11 years. In March 2017, the state of California awarded him more than $538,000 in damages. Michelle's family was disappointed that the jury's verdict against Raymond could be easily overturned by a newly formed unit. However, the appeals court upheld the judge's decision. The family continues to struggle after losing Michelle. A few years later, they lost their son to a drug overdose. The couple is now divorced. They have suffered the loss of 2 children and also lost their only source of comfort, knowing that Michelle's killers are in prison. The investigation into her case continues. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Kelly Lane. Kelly Lane was an Australian beauty and a champion water polo athlete. Despite her success, she faced a series of unfortunate events that led to tragedy, leaving many unanswered questions about her story. Born in 1975, Kelly grew up in a sports-oriented family. Her father, originally known as Bim, later became a police officer named Robert Lane. Her mother, Sandra, worked in a medical institution and coached water polo. Kelly had a brother named Morgan. The family was affluent and lived in a prestigious area of Sydney, Australia. Kelly was a golden child, attending Lee High School and later Mayclara. After graduating, she enrolled at the University of Newcastle to study art and then attended the Australian College of Physical Education. During this time, she started her sports career, working as a physical education teacher and coach at a girls' high school. Following in her mother's footsteps, Kelly became a highly skilled water polo player, which made her famous in her city. Her parents were proud of her accomplishments and were themselves respected professionals. Kelly took part in almost all public events, especially sports-related ones, and had a bright future ahead. Her mother was both her coach and manager, dedicating a lot of time to Kelly's career. Initially, Sandra personally handled her daughter's training, but later Kelly was coached by a more experienced trainer. Kelly dedicated herself completely to sports. Her parents were supportive and actively helped her progress in her chosen path. Despite her hectic schedule, Kelly was calm and reserved. She had a fit, athletic body and natural beauty, seldom wearing makeup. Her attractiveness and sociable nature made her popular even in high school. In 1992, when she was finishing her studies, Kelly met Aaron. They had a lot in common and their relationship developed into a romance. At the age of 17, she unexpectedly became pregnant while still in school and, not ready to become a mother, she chose to have an abortion. Aaron supported her decision. In order to continue her athletic career, Kelly kept her pregnancy and abortion a secret, never telling her parents. By early 1994, Kelly's relationship with Aaron ended due to frequent arguments. She then began an affair with a married man and became pregnant at 19, despite using contraception. She did not plan to keep the child and decided to have another abortion. This decision was made in secret, as the father did not want the child either. Kelly sought a different clinic for more confidentiality but was initially refused because the pregnancy was too advanced for a safe procedure. She had to convince the doctors to perform the surgery and they finally agreed. At that time, she was in her 20th week of pregnancy. Remarkably, during 5 months of intense training, no one noticed her condition because athletes often endure challenging situations. Kelly, determined to participate in the Olympic Games, did not show weakness or ask for special treatment. Her athleticism helped her maintain a fit appearance, aided by loose clothing. Sometimes, a woman's body structure can conceal a pregnancy until later stages, as was the case with Kelly. Although the abortion was traumatic, she felt relieved to have resolved the situation and continued with her life, pursuing sports and forming new relationships. In 1995, Kelly started dating a new boyfriend named Duncan, and they were together until 1998. Duncan professed his deep love for Kelly and expressed a desire to marry her. Both were athletes who enjoyed parties and entertainment. During this time, Kelly became pregnant again with an unwanted child. After her previous traumatic abortion, she was reluctant to seek medical help. Despite being pregnant, Kelly still chose to compete in sports and compete in the World Cup. Practicing a demanding sport like water polo while pregnant is no easy feat, yet Kelly managed it. Despite the intense physical demands, no one noticed the strain she was under, not even her boyfriend on the team, as Kelly kept her pregnancy a secret. To maintain her privacy, she wore a towel to the pool and only removed it before entering the water, avoiding showing her figure in a swimsuit by wearing loose clothing. Her boyfriend remained unaware but later recalled that she never let him touch her stomach and had limited contact with him. Around the 7th month of her pregnancy, an unexpected situation occurred. During practice, a swimmer in the water next to Kelly noticed her protruding belly and suspected that she might be pregnant. The swimmer shared her suspicions with her coach. Kelly's coach then asked her about it. Kelly firmly denied being pregnant, and the coach, upon seeing her small belly, was reassured. Kelly continued to lie, fearing that it would ruin her athletic career. Kelly was participating in a local water polo event. During the event, she felt unwell and was taken to hospital on a stretcher, where she gave birth to a baby girl. She experienced severe contractions, which likely began during the competition. After the birth, Kelly abandoned the baby, who was later adopted. She even named another man as the father. Despite this, Kelly was forced to stay in the hospital with the baby until she was discharged. She did not inform her family about the birth, telling her parents that she was with friends, which they believed. No one was worried about her, allowing her to carry out her plan. On her birthday, she managed to leave the hospital to have a drink with friends. She became intoxicated. After returning from the party, at the beginning of the year, Kelly began working as a teacher at a private school. She also continued her water polo career, representing Australia at the World Championships in Canada. Kelly performed well and won a silver medal. When Kelly turned 21, she became pregnant again. Despite being pregnant, Kelly maintained a romantic relationship with Duncan, who was deeply in love and considering marriage. However, she chose to keep her pregnancy a secret from her family, friends, and Duncan, even though they had been together for a long time and he was eager to marry her. Throughout her pregnancy, Kelly did not show any physical signs. She remained slim and did not alter her lifestyle. She regularly consumed alcohol, attended parties, engaged in intimate relationships, and continued to exercise vigorously, just as she always had. In a small suburb where everyone knew each other, Kelly faced the challenge of being the subject of gossip during her pregnancies. Many people envied her and suspected something was wrong, fueling rumors about her condition. This suspicion was partly due to changes in her behavior, like wearing towels or loose-fitting clothes. While those close to her didn't notice anything unusual, some outsiders found it odd. Regardless, Kelly consistently denied any rumors about being pregnant, insisting she was fine, and no one challenged her assertions, as there was no proof to suggest otherwise. In April 1996, Kelly's relationship with Duncan began to deteriorate. He moved to a different area and bought a house, creating distance between them. Later, Kelly discovered that he had cheated on her with one of the athletes on her team. Although this betrayal hurt her, Kelly chose to forgive him and work to save their relationship. On September 12, in the year 1996, Kelly secretly gave birth to her second daughter, whom she named Tegan. She had informed her relatives that she would be spending the weekend with friends, but instead, she went to the hospital to give birth. Kelly chose a hospital far from home, reducing the risk of encountering someone she knew. For the first time during her pregnancy, she used her real name and date of birth at the hospital. She even considered keeping the baby. However, she later changed her address and phone number. At the time, it was relatively easy to hide or change personal information. Australians had access to free health care, including anonymous services if needed. Unlike her previous children, baby Tegan felt the warmth of her mother, indicating that a bond had formed between them. Kelly spent time with her daughter, breastfeeding, bathing and sleeping together. During her labor, she consulted with doctors about her future as a mother. Unlike before, she tried to avoid or abandon her child. Just 2 days after giving birth, Kelly and her daughter were discharged from hospital. However, she missed an important test required in Australia, which involves taking blood from the baby's heel for newborn screening. The early discharge was necessary because of a lack of beds in the hospital. Both Kelly and her daughter felt well and were quickly discharged to make room for other patients. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, Kelly left home between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., and no one saw the baby again. She returned to her parents' house around 3 p.m. without her daughter. Since no one knew she had given birth, there were no suspicions or questions about her absence. That evening, she met her boyfriend and went out to a family wedding where she acted normally as if nothing had happened. Her behavior raised no concerns among her relatives. For the next 10 years, no one suspected the existence of Tegan. The baby had vanished during the time between leaving the hospital and arriving at her parents' home. Since only Kelly and the doctors were aware of the baby's existence, no one searched for Tegan. The doctors did not follow up on the baby's fate, so the information remained hidden. At the end of 1998, Kelly became pregnant again due to her carelessness. By the time she discovered her pregnancy, she had already broken up with her boyfriend, Duncan. This time, she decided not to tell anyone and wanted to have an abortion. In early February 1999, she visited the new abortion clinic in Queensland. However, her request for an abortion was denied because she arrived at the clinic in the 25th week of her pregnancy, which was too late for the procedure. She faced similar refusals at other clinics, leaving her with no choice but to give birth. Kelly secretly gave birth in the hospital and immediately put the baby up for adoption. By that time, the laws regarding adoption had changed, making the process more complicated. She spoke briefly with a social worker about her lack of documents. Kelly lied, claiming it was her first birth, and provided her real name but gave false information about her contact details and address. She also stated that she did not know who the child's father was. Because of the incorrect information she provided, the social worker's job became much more difficult. When the organization that assists new mothers reviewed her case, they realized they had been misled and that this was not Kelly's first birth. They began searching for her to discuss the situation, as they lacked the necessary information to legally finalize the adoption of the child. The adoption process in the country has changed significantly, but Kelly was not aware of this. Consequently, the social workers handling the adoption paperwork performed a thorough background check on the child's biological mother. As they investigated her history and life, they uncovered numerous inconsistencies and falsehoods. They investigated Kelly's situation and found that she likely had a daughter named Tegan, whom she had given birth to several years earlier. Kelly did not abandon Tegan, she left the hospital with her. However, The only information available was that Tegan was born in a hospital near Bern. After leaving the hospital, there was no communication from Kelly. She never Tegan took for checkups, vaccinations, or visits to the pediatrician. For 3 years, there were no updates about the child, and Kelly's biological mother denied that Kelly had ever given birth. This situation raised alarms, leading social services employees to reach out to Kelly's mother. She confidently insisted that they were mistaken and claimed she had no grandchildren. However, the social workers suspected something was wrong and contacted the police, who began their investigation. Meanwhile, Kelly went about her life, unaware that the police were getting closer to uncovering her secrets. In 2000, on her 25th birthday, it was revealed that she was pregnant again, and this time she chose to keep the child. For the first time, she shared this news with her family and boyfriend. This decision was likely influenced by Kelly's sports career, as she was aging and had stopped competing. Kelly tried to work as a coach and present herself as a respectable mother, which was beneficial for her at that time. However, she was unaware that the investigation into the disappearance of baby Tegan was intensifying. Later, police reached out to her regarding her previous pregnancies, and Kelly was summoned for questioning. This time, she could not evade it, as police had already gathered extensive information about her. Kelly admitted to 5 pregnancies, including those that were terminated, between the ages of 17 and 24. She had 2 abortions and gave birth to 3 children, all without her family's knowledge. She stated that Tegan was born from a secret relationship with an older man named Andrew Morris. Kelly met Andrew on Vis Beach Street, where he worked in finance, and they connected in a bar. Their relationship was short-lived. When Kelly discovered she was pregnant and shared the news with Andrew, he was excited and awaited the birth. She claimed that after the baby was born, Andrew took Tegan but did not clarify where they would live. Kelly was unable to provide further details about Andrew. Nevertheless, a portrait was created based on her description for the investigation. The police began by checking their records, with the initial goal of finding the baby's father, Andrew, to find out where the child was. The police were stumped because they could not find any men matching Kelly's description. The potential matches were either too young or too old, and no one by that name lived on Bibbich Street, which cast doubt on Kelly's story. They eventually discovered an Andrew Morris, who had previously been in a relationship with Kelly, but that was years before her child was born. When the police contacted him, he confirmed that he had not seen Kelly for a long time and did not have any children with her. He had moved away a long time ago and had never lived at the address Kelly had provided. A month later, the investigation hit a temporary pause because there were no new leads on the child. However, a new police took over the case, and Kelly was called in for questioning again. She recounted the same story she had shared with the previous police, but some details had changed, and which the new police noticed. For instance, the father's last name had suddenly shifted from Andrew Morris to Andrew Norris. With a friendly smile, Kelly claimed she might have made a mistake during the earlier questioning and now remembered the correct last name, which confused the police. They directly asked her if she had killed her daughter. Kelly was surprised and denied it, asking to stop the audio recording of the interrogation. She was clearly distressed, mainly worried about how discussing her pregnancy might impact her career. However, there wasn't enough evidence to charge her, so the Kelly was released, and the investigation continued. Police, after considerable effort, were unable to locate Andrew Norris. However, they were unable to find any men matching Kelly's description, nor were there any children resembling Tegan enrolled in schools or kindergartens in the Minley area or surrounding communities. Police sifted through some 86,000 birth records in an attempt to identify potential adoptive parents for the child, but they found no new leads. Despite Kelly's increasing dishonesty, she continued to mislead the police. She said she saw Tegan 1-year-old in mid-1997, but no one could confirm her claim. Despite this, the police remained optimistic and continued their investigation. They contacted Kelly's ex-boyfriend, Duncan, as her relationship with him coincided with the clandestine relationship that led to Tegan's birth. Duncan maintains that he did not know about Kelly's affair. Duncan suspected that Kelly was pregnant, but she never mentioned it to him. He noticed that she never let him touch her belly, though he didn't think much of it at the time. They lived apart and only saw each other occasionally. He willingly agreed to provide his DNA for testing. The results showed that he was not the biological father of Kelly's first or third child, as both were adopted by other families. Unfortunately, the police did not have DNA samples from the missing baby, so they couldn't confirm if Duncan was the father of Tegan. Connecting all the data to confirm Tegan's existence was a challenge because information about the mother and baby was incomplete and inaccurate, making the investigation even more difficult. While the police worked to solve the mystery and find the Tegan, Kelly continued her life without concern. During this time, rumors spread around town that Kelly had multiple abortions, had children, and abandoned them. These rumors damaged her coaching career and damaged her reputation. Kelly eventually gave birth to a baby girl, whom she chose to keep, and she introduced her to all her relatives. In 2004, to help restore her reputation, she married the father of her fourth child. The police were unable to get any information about Tegan's father, Andrew Norris. Kelly frequently changed her story, which caused the police to lose confidence in her. The case stalled and they offered Kelly a deal. If she pleaded guilty to the child's murder and revealed where the body was buried, she would not face any charges and could avoid jail time. Despite these terms, Kelly maintained her innocence, claiming that she did not kill the child. She claimed that the child was still alive and suggested that both the child's and the father's names may have been changed, or that they may have left the country and are now untraceable. She believed that this was the reason why the police had been unable to locate them. The police found the scenario unlikely. Why would Andrew change both his name and Tegan's if he hadn't kidnapped her? He could have simply taken his daughter away from her mother and updated the necessary paperwork, enrolling her in a nursery, school, or hospital. Why did he remain in hiding for so many years? There is no clear reason for this. The situation was further complicated by a ban on sharing information about the case, which prevented police from seeking help from the media or the public. When Kelly declined a plea bargain and police failed to investigate for years, they concluded that Tegan was dead and the case was treated as a murder. They also deemed Andrew to be a fictitious person. However, there was no solid evidence supporting these claims. Despite the absence of direct evidence or testimony against Kelly, she was charged with Tegan's murder on November 17, 2009. Kelly maintained her innocence, and the case was referred to court. The prosecution claims that Tegan's murder occurred on September 14, 1996, the day Kelly was discharged from the hospital. Shortly after leaving, the baby went missing. Kelly had very little time to commit the crime and dispose of the body. To protect her social status and image, Kelly hid her pregnancy and discarded the baby. She returned home the same day as if nothing had happened, met her boyfriend, and went to celebrate a relative's wedding. During the trial, Kelly maintained her innocence. Her first boyfriend, Aaron, supported her and they rekindled their relationship after her divorce. He shared that it was difficult for them to decide to terminate her pregnancy the first time, and it was a difficult healing process for Kelly, leading him to believe that she was not capable of murder. However, he did not know that she later had another abortion and gave birth to the children she abandoned. In front of the jury, the prosecutor had no concrete evidence, witnesses, or bodies. Only circumstantial evidence against her. Prosecutors described Kelly as a dangerous, manipulative person who would do anything to get what she wanted. Her ability to abandon her children raised suspicions about her capacity to kill. A psychiatrist confirmed that Kelly displayed narcissistic traits and was adept at playing the victim. The trial lasted 4 months and was complicated. Despite the uncertainty of the indictment, the jury found Kelly Lane guilty, not of murdering Tegan, but of perjury. The verdict was handed down on December 13, 2010. The trial reconvened on April 15, 2011, when Kelly confessed to killing Tegan. She was sentenced to 18 years in prison. As a mother unable to care for her many children, she began her sentence in prison, with all of her appeals being rejected. During the trial, Kelly displayed no emotions, appearing indifferent to her baby's fate, which likely influenced the jury's decision. After entering prison, she broke up with Aaron but continued to send him love letters. Meanwhile, Aaron had begun dating someone else. This new girlfriend requested in a reply letter that Kelly stop contacting them, which angered Kelly. In response, she sent letters to Aaron's new girlfriend and asked her friends to harass her. Kelly's cellmates joined in, insulting Aaron's new girlfriend on social media. The woman, tired of being harassed, decided to end her relationship with Aaron. Kelly, 48, is currently serving a prison sentence but will soon be eligible for parole. She maintains her innocence and insists that her daughter is still alive. Kelly's parents fully support her and believe the court's decision was unfair due to a lack of evidence linking Kelly to the child. In an interview, Kelly Lane revealed that she hid her pregnancy to avoid embarrassing her parents. She said that she had taken birth control pills incorrectly multiple times, leading to unwanted pregnancies. New, alarming information has emerged in connection with the case. On May 12, 2023, a taxi driver contacted the police and provided a tip. He revealed that on the day Kelly was discharged from the hospital, he had picked her and her baby up. During the ride home, Kelly asked him to stop the car. She then got out and left the baby on the side of the road. Although the driver testified to this, he did nothing at the time. After dropping Kelly off at home, he was racked with guilt and decided to go back to check on the baby. When he arrived, he saw a woman who said she would take care of the baby, but he left without any information about her. The police attempted to verify this account, but they could not find any confirmation or anyone else who had seen the woman. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another perplexing mystery. The case of Yoselin Ortega. Yoselin Ortega was born in 1962 in the Dominican Republic, as the youngest of 8 siblings. Her family was relatively wealthy, and her parents owned a wine cellar. She did not encounter any difficulties until her teens, when a sister of hers suddenly died from a brain aneurysm. This thing deeply affected her. She did not leave the house for about a year and suffered from depression, missing her sister. During this time, she began hearing voices urging her to harm others, but she confided only in a few sisters, asking them to keep it secret. For many years, almost no one knew about this, not even her parents, who noticed some odd behavior but attributed it to grief and depression over her sister's death. Yoselin continued with her life, resisting the voices and not harming anyone. After finishing school, she attended university to study accounting. Despite her struggles, but she graduated in 1985. She then decided to move to New York, where one of her sisters lived. After that, she and her sister started living together, working together to cover expenses. Eventually, Yoselin met a man and started a relationship with him, marrying in 1995. The following year, they had a son named Jesus. However, after their child was born, the relationship between the couple became worse even though they tried to save it. In 1999, Yoselin and her husband are divorced, leaving her alone with a young child in New York, where the cost of living is very high. Faced with a lot of financial difficulties, so she decided to send her 4-year-old son, Jesus, for grandparents to take care of. Then she returned to the United States, where she can earn more money for herself and her child. Yoselin lived with her sister, and they supported each other by working together in a factory and taking part-time cleaning jobs. She kept in regular contact with her parents and son, calling them almost every day. In 2004, Yoselin became a U.S. citizen. After saving enough money, Yoselin returned to her homeland in March 2008 to raise her son. Things were going well until April 2008, when her best friend Celine tragically ended her life on a balcony. This news plunged Yoselin into depression, making her extremely paranoid. She did not leave the house and forbade her son to go to school. Whenever she heard noises outside, like a dog barking, she will hide under the bed and force her son to hide with her. As time passed, the situation improved. Yoselin regained her composure, and her fears and worries faded away. She returned to work in the USA with her sister, leaving her son with her parents. Eventually, she met the affluent Krim family, who were looking for a nanny for their children. Kevin Krim, the head of the family, was a Harvard graduate, and his wife, Marina, graduated from the University of Southern California. They met at an Italian restaurant through friends and immediately hit it off. They got married in 2003. Marina and Kevin's first daughter, Lucia, was born in 2006, followed by their second daughter, Nessie, in 2009. When Marina was pregnant with her third child, the family relocated from California to New York due to Kevin's job. He was offered the position of Chief Executive Officer at Symbian. Previously, he worked in senior roles at Bloomberg and Yahoo. The family settled in one of Manhattan's finest neighborhoods, Upper West Side. Marina stays at home to do housework and take care of the children, but she later started a blog to document their daily lives as a personal hobby. The second daughter, Nessie, had health issues that required Marina's full attention. As a result, Marina began to have difficulty doing housework and had no time to take her children to extra classes like dancing or swimming. Additionally, she was in the late stages of pregnancy, making it difficult for her to manage anything. Her husband, Kevin, was frequently away on business trips and couldn't assist her, so they decided to hire a nanny for help. Marina and Kevin began searching for a nanny. At the dance studio Marina attended with her children, they met Yoselin's sister, Celia, housekeeper for another family. Celia introduced Yoselin to them and sent her younger sister's resume. Impressed by Yoselin's experience with children, they contacted Yoselin's previous employer and received a positive recommendation. Then, they invited Yoselin for an interview and immediately liked her. She was sociable, smiling, and friendly. They decided to hire her as a part-time nanny. She came to their home after lunch and helped with the children until the evening. However, the entire story about the resume was fabricated. Yoselin has no experience with childcare, unlike her sister, Celia. However, she needed a good job, and when an opportunity arose to earn a decent salary of $500 a week, Celia helped her create a resume. Despite her lack of experience, but Yoselin excelled in the job. She got along well with the children, and there were no issues for about 2 years. Unfortunately, the Krim family could not have anticipated the tragedy that followed. Yoselin appeared to be a kind and trustworthy woman, and the Krims believed their children were completely safe with her. This gave Marina free time to teach at a drawing school, her hobby, and continue blogging. The nanny Yoselin treated the family's children as if they were her own, often joking that she had not one son, but 4 children. The children loved her in return, giving her drawings and becoming attached to her. The youngest son of the Krim family, Leo, couldn't even fall asleep without her. Marina was very cautious. She rarely left Yoselin alone with the children, she doing so only in cases of extreme necessity. Usually, Marina was always with the children, and Yoselin just assisted. Even when Marina left the house, she asked her relatives to keep an eye on Jocelyn. According to Celia, Jocelyn was happy with her job as a nanny. She earned a good salary for part-time work and received gifts, including expensive ones. Krim family even bought her plane tickets to the Dominican Republic so she can visit loved ones. They became so close to Jocelyn that in February 2012, they all went on vacation together to the Dominican Republic. There, they met Jocelyn's family, spent a night at her family's house, enjoyed the wonderful vacation, and gave her family many gifts. Krim family also helped Jocelyn's grown-up son, Jesus, move to New York to be closer to his mother. They bought 17-year-old Jesus an iPad for school, let him stay with them, and paid him well just for walking their 2 dogs. Although he had graduated from school in his home country, but Jesus had to repeat the 11th grade in the US under a different American program at a regular school. When he wasn't accepted, Jocelyn had to arrange for him to attend a private school, which was expensive for her. She was very protective of her son and didn't let him go outside unless necessary. She made him hide under the bed during loud noises, as he did in childhood, and when he went to school, she would to follow him secretly to ensure nothing happened to him. In April 2012, Jocelyn faced difficulties when she was evicted from the Bronx apartment she shared with her son. She had invested heavily in the housing, but the landlord evicted them. She was forced to move back in with her 3 sisters and their families, totaling 6 more people. The living situation was overcrowded and cramped. Jocelyn asked the Krim family for a raise so she could afford separate housing. They agreed to pay her more if she also cleaned their house for 5 hours a week. She accepted, but for the first time in a long time, she again had financial difficulties because she had to raise her son and pay the rent alone. Despite a decent income, her expenses were still too high. This situation stressed Jocelyn's to sell jewelry and cosmetics to neighbors for extra money. Initially, she was successful, but when she gave cosmetics to a friend to sell, the friend disappeared without paying her back. This left she with a significant debt, forcing her to take on more work. She started cooking rice and preparing chicken dishes to sell. The extra workload exhausted her. She complained to her loved ones, saying the Krim family should pay her to babysit, not to clean and do housework. She felt that their family was so rich, they should just give her a raise without additional duties, and she was angry with them. Marina knew that Jocelyn needed money and began introducing her to friends and acquaintances to work as a nanny. When new clients started reaching out, Jocelyn became upset with Marina. She felt that taking on more work would leave her with less time to spend with her son. Her frustration grew daily. During these months, she lost a lot of weight and appeared tired and worn out. Once a cheerful and happy woman, she became tired and disillusioned with life. She began to have hallucinations, had trouble sleeping. Celia noticed that she started praying frequently at home, reading religious magazines because she saw demons, and began visiting a psychologist. But she hid all this from the Krim family, fearing she might lose her good job. On October 25, 2012, Jocelyn arrived at the Krim family's house at 3 p.m. Marina met Jocelyn's at the door, as she was leaving with Nessie for a swimming lesson. She instructed Jocelyn to pick up Lucia from school and take Lucia's to ballet. Then Jocelyn had to go home to put Leo to bed. In the end, they planned to meet at Lucia's ballet class and return home together. Jocelyn and Leo picked up Lucia from school as planned but did not take Lucia to ballet lessons. Instead, they went for a walk in the park, ate ice cream, and then returned home. That day, Jocelyn first spoke to the janitor of the apartment building where the Krim family lived. She asked if Marina had returned home, but the concierge said no. Then, she, Lucia and Leo took the elevator to the apartment and ran into a neighbor. Just half an hour later, a tragedy occurred. Around 5 p.m., Marina and Nessie went to Lucia's ballet class to pick up Lucia. little girl was supposed to be there with Jocelyn. However, Marina found out that little girl did not come to class. Concerned, Marina rushed back to her Upper West Side apartment in New York. On the way, she tried calling Jocelyn, but Jocelyn didn't answer. Marina initially thought no one was home and that Jocelyn might be out with the children in the park. She went to the concierge to ask if he had seen Jocelyn and the children. The concierge told her that they had recently returned to the building and they may be in the apartment. Marina and Nessie went back to the apartment and began to search each room. When Marina entered the bathroom, she was met with a horrific sight. Her two children, Lucia and Leo, lay lifeless on the floor, covered in blood, and Jocelyn sitting next to them holding a bloody kitchen knife. Seeing Marina's reaction, Jocelyn stabbed herself in the throat twice. Marina got scared. She rushed out of the apartment with Nessie, screaming. The neighbors heard Marina's heart-wrenching screams, and the building security calmed her down before calling 911 and emergency services. When the New York Police Department officers arrived, they found a horrific scene in the Krim family's apartment. Two small children, Lucia and Leo, lay in the bathtub with knife wounds, Marina beside them, overcome with grief and horror. The nanny Jocelyn lay on the floor, bleeding and in critical condition. Doctors found Jocelyn, Lucia, and Leo still alive and rushed them to the hospital. Tragically, Lucia and Leo did not survive. They were pronounced dead on arrival. Lucia was 6 years old, and her brother Leo was 2 years old. The nanny, 50 years old Jocelyn Ortega, survived. She was put into a coma and underwent surgery. She had cut her hands and neck with such force that she broke her cervical vertebrae. Marina was in shock and unable to provide any information to the police, so they gave her a sedative. Her husband, Kevin, who was returning from a business trip, received a frantic voicemail from Marina, but couldn't understand what she was saying. He only knew that something was wrong with the children. When he arrived at the airport, police met him and delivered the devastating news. He fainted and was given first aid before being taken to the hospital to be with Marina. They were overcome with grief and struggled to comprehend how their nanny, who had been caring for their children for 2 years and was considered a member of the family, could commit such a heinous act. A neighbor reported seeing Jocelyn with Lucia and Leo in the elevator just 30 minutes before the tragedy. Lucia and Leo seemed happy and playful, while Jocelyn appeared emotionless and detached. However, the neighbor didn't think much of it, as Jocelyn had behaved similarly in the past. Other nannies in the area, who often helped each other, barely knew Jocelyn, as Jocelyn was very withdrawn and didn't communicate with anyone. They considered her strange. The autopsy revealed Lucia and Leo suffered a horrific death, with nearly beheaded bodies. Lucia suffered more than 30 stab wounds and cuts, indicating that little girl had fought fiercely for her life, leading to severe blood loss. Her younger brother, Leo, had 5 stab wounds to the neck, and his throat was cut from behind. There was no doubt Jocelyn was responsible for the murder. Detectives began to investigate her background in detail. Jocelyn was hospitalized for a week and she was saved. When she regained consciousness, she could only communicate through gestures. She only asked about her family, but she said nothing about the murdered children or the Krim family. Later, when Jocelyn could speak, detectives interviewed her on November 3rd. She did not confess to the murder, but she expressed feelings of resentment towards Krim's family because they often reprimanded her. She refused to have a lawyer during the interrogation. She said she was in the bathroom at the time of the incident, and she denied responsibility for causing the injuries that led to the deaths of Lucia, 6, and Leo, 2. In addition, she said that the children's mother, Marina, knew why this happened. On November 13th, Jocelyn Ortega was charged with the first-degree murder of the children, but she denied her guilt and hired a lawyer. as New York had abolished the death penalty, so she faced life imprisonment. Yoselin was given a psychiatric examination and psychiatrists found her to be sane and able to appear in court. During the proceedings, Yoselin declined a plea bargain from the prosecution, which offered her a 30-year sentence in exchange for a guilty plea, allowing her potential release at around 80 years of age. However, she chose not to explain the incident and motives behind the crime, opting instead to be represented by a lawyer. The lawyer argued that her actions were due to her mental illnesses. She broke down and lost control when she harmed Lucia and Leo. Two psychiatrists for Yoselin testified that she heard voices, including satanic ones, telling her to harm herself and the children. They stated that she had experienced hallucinations since her teenage years in the Dominican Republic, but her condition had not been diagnosed or treated. Before she was arrested for murder, several family members and friends noted that Yoselin's behavior had changed in the weeks leading up to the crime. She said she saw demons and shadows of people haunting her, she frequently cried, and prayed for the demons to leave her alone. Shortly before the murders, she threw pots and pans at the pool and kitchen walls to drown out the voices in her head, and sometimes banged her head against the wall to drive the demons away. Yoselin's sisters blamed the Krim family for the tragedy, accusing them of exploiting she, not allowing her adequate rest, failing to notice signs of mental illness, and leaving her alone with the children. In court, a psychotherapist who had seen Yoselin testified that he did not find any signs of mental disorder in her, only anxiety and mild depression due to concerns about her son. A recording of her conversation with a psychologist was played, confirming that she did not mention hearing voices or experiencing other symptoms of psychosis. The possibility of Yoselin having a mental illness was dismissed. A psychiatrist, called by the prosecution, assumed she was angry and was faking psychosis. A relative of Yoselin mentioned that she envied the Krim family because they could provide for their children in ways she could not, and she had to send her son to live with his grandparents when he was only 4 years old. The defense argued that tensions had arisen between Yoselin and the Krim family. Besides taking care of the kids, she was also paid to clean their apartment and do odd jobs, which she was reluctant to do due to an allergy to cleaning products. She also disliked being asked by Marina to work for other families. On one occasion, Marina asks her to look after another family's child, while their nanny is on sick leave. She agreed, but the next day she refused to go to the other family. Marina confronted her about this near the school, in front of strangers, making she feel uncomfortable. Afterward, she sat in the park and cried. She believed that Marina intended to humiliate her in front of others. Tensions between the Krim and Yoselin continued to rise. They were unhappy with her work in the weeks leading up to the murder and had warned her that if she did not improve her performance, she would have to find another job. In particular, Marina felt that she did not spend enough time interacting with the children and fed them unhealthy food. The day before the murder, Marina did not say goodbye to she, which made she very angry and upset. Yoselin was upset with the Krim family due to a constant lack of money. She also disliked the frequently changing work schedule, which sometimes caused her to miss doctor's appointments. Prolonged dissatisfaction, along with mental disorder, made she increasingly angry, something she could not control. Without realizing what she was doing, she committed murder, her lawyer said. However, the prosecutor argued that the crime was carefully planned in advance. The day before the crime, Yoselin returned home, took medicine for a headache, talked to her sister Celia, and asked her to care for Jesus as if little boy were her own son. Celia agreed without understanding what Yoselin meant. On the day of the murders, Yoselin ensured her son got to school safely and said goodbye to little boy before heading to work. She left Celia an envelope containing important personal documents such as her passport, driver's license, bank cards, insurance certificate, and some cash. She also attached a paper bag with family memorabilia, photographs, and her jewelry to her son's room door. The prosecutor believed this was her way of saying goodbye to her family, knowing she wouldn't return. She also deliberately did not take Lucia to ballet lessons. The prosecution argued that Jesus' move to the United States triggered her, increased her anxiety, depression, and guilt, so her resentment toward the Krim family also increased. On April 18, 2018, the jury found Yoselin Ortegas guilty of first-degree child murder. The jury describing her actions as pure evil and dismissing the defense's argument that she wasn't responsible due to mental illness. Although the judge acknowledged that her mental illness influenced her actions that day, he expressed regret that she nor had secured the psychiatric treatment she needed. However, he stressed that planning a crime on that day had been meticulous. Before the court handed down its verdict, Marina said that Yoselin ended up destroying her own family. At this point, Marina broke into tears, and Yoselin shamefully lowered her head. Despite the terrible tragedy, the Krim family remained strong. They went on to have 2 more children's sons named Felix and Nose. Kevin requested the judge impose the maximum penalty on Yoselin to ensure she would never leave prison. He observed no remorse from her and believed she should just spend the rest of her life in prison. The prosecutor echoed Kevin's request, urging the judge to sentence her to life imprisonment without parole. He argued that Yoselin not only brutally killed Lucia and Leo, and she didn't even regret her actions. She attempted to end her own life to escape responsibility for her actions, but her plan did not succeed. Yoselin's lawyer requested leniency from the judge during sentencing. She argued that the jury reached this decision because they were influenced by Marina's emotional state, not based on an objective assessment of the evidence. Ultimately, the judge ruled in favor of the prosecution. On May 14, 2018, Yoselin Ortega, aged 55, received the maximum sentence of life imprisonment without parole. However, she remained composed for most of the trial. The case was particularly difficult when it involved the children, which moved many to tears, but Yoselin did not cry. When witnesses described the kindness of the Krim family towards her, she shook her head in disagreement. However, she began to cry when the verdict was announced. After the verdict, Yoselin expressed her regret in Spanish, saying she's very sorry about everything that happened, and asked for forgiveness from God, Marina, and Kevin. During the trial, it was disclosed that the Krim family had been misled by false claims of Yoselin's experience as a nanny. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Amy Fisher. Amy Fisher was born on August 21, 1974, in New York, USA. She is the only child in her family. Amy has a rather shy and modest personality. Amy often feels lonely. Although her parents provided her with everything she wanted, because they worked long hours and had little time for her. Therefore, she formed a close relationship with her grandmother and aunt. Her father was strict and harsh, often punishing both his wife and daughter for any mistakes, which made Amy afraid of him. There were many arguments between her parents, and each time, Amy hoped they would lead to divorce. However, her father was a skillful manipulator who controlled her mother, making her too afraid to leave the marriage. At a young age, Amy suffered a traumatic experience when she was raped by a family friend when she was just 6 years old. She kept this abuse a secret. When she was 13, Amy was raped again, this time by a worker hired to fix her family's house. And once again, she chose not to speak about it. These experiences left her with deep psychological scars. Despite this trauma, Amy tried to lead a normal teenage life. She had a close group of friends and a beloved dog that she spent time with every day. During this time, she dreamed of going to college to become a fashion designer. In February 1991, after an argument over the phone with her mother about spending the night at a friend's house, Amy ran away from home. During the argument, her father took the phone and warned her that if she came home late, he would punish her. This caused Amy to not return home, and she spent several days sleeping at various friends' houses and at her aunt and grandmother's. She was afraid to return because of her father's threats. Meanwhile, her father reported her missing to the police, saying that she was unstable and uncontrollable. That same year, the girl discovered she was pregnant, which shocked both her and her boyfriend. Fortunately, her aunt helped her arrange an abortion without her parents finding out. In May, when she left the garage, she accidentally broke the side mirror of her car. She feared that her father would punish her for this incident. She had previously taken her car to a repair shop to fix a similar problem, where a skilled mechanic quickly fixed the car without her father noticing. This time, she returned to the shop alone and met a man named Joey Buttafogo. This meeting was the fate of her life. Joey was married to Mary Jo, the oldest of 5 sisters from a Catholic family in a Long Island suburb. They met in 1971 while both were in high school and taking summer courses. Joey was charming and funny, but he had lost his mother when he was 11, which left him deeply affected during his teenage years. Mary provided him with support during this difficult time. Their relationship developed quickly, and they married in 1977, purchasing a house next to his family's auto repair shop. Mary's lifestyle changed dramatically when she became pregnant. Mary began to accept a more responsible adult life. And she noticed that Joey had not changed. While she was at home, Joey continued to go to parties as usual. Mary did not confront him about this, hoping that he would eventually change. However, this situation made her frustrated because of Joey's needs and desires. He became addicted to drugs, went to work early and came home late, sometimes disappearing for days. Each time he returned, he had a convincing excuse, because he was very good at lying. Mary endured this situation for a long time, rarely seeing her husband, and her patience was exhausted. She began to talk about divorce more often, but Joey always tried to ease her worries. And then she went on to get pregnant again. After giving birth to her daughter Jessica, she tried her best to maintain the appearance of an ideal family. Meanwhile, Joey continued his reckless behavior. This made Mary feel sad and made her see herself as a failure. As a result, she began to experience frequent panic attacks. Mary began seeing a therapist who helped her control her anxiety. However, this did not solve the problem of her uncontrollable husband. Faced with this reality, Mary had no choice but to take prescription medication, raise her child, and hope for a future where Joey would change. Mary gradually realized that they needed to move back to their old neighborhood on Long Island, as Joey's parties and friends were having a negative effect on him. She convinced Joey that they needed to move. The couple planned to buy a new house. Much to Mary's surprise, her husband quickly found a cash buyer for their current home, making it seem like a great opportunity. They could move immediately, and Mary expected to receive the money to buy a new house. However, on the day they were due to leave, Joey admitted to a serious problem. He revealed that he had mortgaged their property and given all the money to his drug dealer. It turned out that he was heavily in debt due to his drug use and had to mortgage the house just to pay off the debt. This news was quite distressing. A family with 2 children found themselves homeless and broke. Fortunately, Joey's father stepped in to help by giving them the money they needed for a down payment on a new home in Massapequa, a suburb of Long Island. However, he had his own motives. He believed Joey was incapable of managing a business and feared he would lose the auto repair shop. As a result, Joey received the money, but he also lost his claim to the family business and became just an employee in his father's shop. Despite this, Mary remained supportive and forgave her husband. She enrolled him in a rehabilitation program, which ultimately helped him. In the end, they were able to find happiness together. The Mary never expected that another woman would enter their lives. In May 1991, Amy Fisher returned to the auto repair shop to fix her car, just like she had done the previous year. She was worried about her father finding out because she didn't have any money, so she needed to come up with a story. Joey agreed to help her with this. Joey agreed to help her with this. They decided he would say she brought the car in for routine maintenance, and that while she was there, someone had hit her car at night and broken the mirror. The plan worked. Amy's father believed the story, and Amy felt grateful to Joey for helping her avoid trouble with her dad. From that point on, Amy frequently brought her car to the shop for minor repairs, which she pretended were her fault, just to see Joey more often. Amy was much younger than Joey, with an age gap of almost 20 years. However, she often flirted with Joey. On July 2nd, she went to the auto repair shop again to install a sound system. Because her father could not take her home after leaving the car there for several hours. Then Joey offered to drive Amy home himself, and she agreed. When they arrived at her house, he asked if she could show him around, and she agreed. They had sex for the first time at her parents' house. After that experience, the girl began to consider Joey her boyfriend. They met again that night. Even though she was only 16 and he was 35, they began their relationship. Amy and Joey's relationship continued over the next few years. Amy would frequently visit Joey's auto repair shop, and they would meet at a motel and at her house. Joey seemed to be taking advantage of Amy's weaknesses. He knew about her troubled relationship with her father and realized how vulnerable she was. He began buying her expensive gifts and taking her out to dinner and on his boat. Amy was very fond of Joey, and their age difference did not bother her. Amy finally turned 17 on August 21, 1991. A month after her birthday, she approached Joey for financial help. By that time, Joey had lost his management position at the shop and could not give her the money she needed. Joey then suggested that she could make money by selling her body, and she agreed to become a call girl. Over time, Amy met other men, but her relationship with Joey continued. Their relationship was unhealthy, and it was clear that it would not end well. Just before the tragic events, Joey pressured her to cut ties with her aunt, one of the few supportive family members. Amy agreed and ended up without any support from her family. Amy urged Joey to leave his wife. However, Joey refused. Despite his relationship with Amy, Joey still loved Mary deeply and had no intention of leaving family. This revelation came as a significant shock to Amy. At the time, she decided to end all contact with him, but she struggled with her feelings and ultimately chose to stay in his life. During this time, Joey frequently expressed that his marriage was deteriorating. He mentioned having deep feelings for Amy and even mentioned wanting Mary dead. According to him, he had caught Mary cheating on him multiple times, and he described her behavior as unbearable, saying that she had tormented him throughout their marriage. Joey often made excuses for why he couldn't file for divorce, with the couple's children being the main reason. Amy believed him and felt sympathy for his situation. Over time, these lies began to influence Amy's thoughts, leading her to devise a murder plan. She intended for Mary to be shot, believing this would allow Joey to be free of his wife. Initially, Amy attempted to hire 2 of her classmates to carry out the murder, offering them $400 in sexual favors in return. However, her classmates eventually refused, causing her plan to fail. The situation changed dramatically when Amy started going to the gym and met the gym owner, Paul Meckley, a 30-year-old man. They began a romantic relationship. In addition, Amy regularly met 3 clients, providing them with intimate services. At this point, she decided to stop using the company's services and started seeing clients directly. She openly shared details of her life with Paul. Since he knew Joey well, Paul tried to convince Amy to end her relationship with Joey, who was married. When Joey finds out that Amy is dating someone else, he becomes anxious for fear of losing her. He tries to interfere with her new relationship, but all his efforts are unsuccessful. Meanwhile, Paul and Amy decide to get revenge on Joey. Their plan is to inform his wife, Mary, about Joey's affair. To carry out their plan, they hire a 21-year-old named Peter Guargenti to drive Amy to Mary's house. They steal the license plate from a random car in town to use on Peter's car. On May 19, 1992, Amy went to school but did not intend to attend classes. Instead, she went straight to the nurse, saying she felt unwell, and was sent home. Peter was waiting for her in his car at the entrance. They switched the license plates and drove to the Mary family's house. At 11:30, Amy knocked on the door. At that moment, Mary was inside the house drawing by herself. When Mary opened the door, Amy asked her to step out onto the porch for an important conversation. Amy introduced herself using a fake name and told a story about Joey being in a relationship with her sister. However, Mary did not believe her. She thought her husband had stopped partying and had become a devoted family man. The Amy guest became very anxious. She felt frustrated by Mary's lack of trust. To prove her connection, she revealed a T-shirt with the logo of the auto repair shop where Joey worked. However, Mary still did not believe and rejected Amy's story. This led to a heated argument that lasted 15 minutes. The Amy tried every possible way to persuade the Mary that her husband was having an affair. Amy concealed important details such as her actual age, where she lived, and her relationship with the Joey, twisting the truth to fit her story. As a result, Amy's lies seemed even less credible. Eventually, the Mary turned away and headed for the door, asking the Amy to leave. It was clear that she viewed the girl's claims as fabrications and had no intention of listening further. In a fit of rage, Amy hit Mary in the head and accidentally shot her. The recoil of the gun knocked Amy to the ground, and Mary landed on top of Amy. She then pushed Mary away, quickly got up, and got into Peter's car. She later told Peter that the gun had gone off accidentally, claiming that she had only meant to scare Mary. After fleeing the scene, they dumped the gun and Mary's bloody clothes in a sewer near her house. She returned home and pretended that nothing had happened. A passerby heard a loud bang but did not see Amy. He found Mary lying unconscious in a pool of blood on the porch. He quickly ran to a neighbor's house for help and called an ambulance. Doctors arrived in time and discovered that the bullet had hit a vital artery and shattered her jaw. Mary had lost a significant amount of blood and was in critical condition. Thanks to the passerby's quick actions, she had a chance of survival. Doctors assessed her condition and thought she had a good chance of recovery and rushed her to the hospital. The bullet was lodged near her spine, making it impossible to remove. Mary was placed on life support overnight while undergoing surgery. Fortunately, she regained consciousness a few days later and was able to provide the police with a description of her attacker. Mary repeated Amy's story, but Amy had given a false address and name, rendering the information futile. However, there was one clue: a T-shirt with the logo of Joey's auto repair shop. The police approached Joey for information. He explained that he had distributed a large number of the T-shirts for promotional purposes. He also gave the police a photo of Amy, his mistress. Joey suspected her of being involved, which helped the police identify the attacker. On May 21st, Amy was arrested on the street near her home. She was then subjected to a 12-hour interrogation without her parents or an attorney present, a violation of the legal protections afforded to minors. Her parents had no idea what had happened. When they returned home that evening, they assumed Amy had simply run away again, so they were not concerned when she did not return home that night. The police did not inform them that their daughter had been arrested for attempted murder. When details of the case became public, journalists quickly became interested in Amy, a girl with a troubled life and crime. They reported that she had sold her body and had attacked a respectable married woman with a gun. This caused public outrage, and reporters searched for any information they could find. A video emerged showing Amy with another client. Weeks after her arrest, Amy had not confessed to any of the crimes. She was held on $2 million bail. Her story attracted a lot of attention. Amy to post bail and spend time at home while awaiting trial. However, the media attention severely harmed her reputation. Amy claimed that the illegal activities she was involved in were a result of Joey's influence, as he pressured her into selling her body at a young age. This became the central argument that her lawyers used in their defense strategy. Joey denied having an affair with Amy, but evidence emerged in the form of 13 receipts from a motel where he met Amy, confirming their secret involvement. Several motel employees confirmed frequent visits. During the court proceedings, Amy spoke against him, providing evidence linking his handwriting to the relationship. However, Joey maintained that the accusations were fabricated. Even Mary sided with him, refuting Amy's. While waiting for her trial, Amy focused on preparing for it. She spent all her money on bail, leaving her unable to pay her lawyer, who agreed to defend her for free. There were rumors that she was having an affair with her lawyer, who seemed to have feelings for her and even sent her gifts. On the advice of her attorney, she accepted a plea deal with the prosecution. With the weapon and motive, it would be difficult to argue that the gun went off accidentally. On September 23, 1992, after turning 18, she confessed to the accidental killing. Amy stated that she was angry with Mary because she refused to listen. When Mary turned away, Amy hit her in the head twice with the gun. After the second strike, the gun accidentally went off, injuring Mary. Amy maintained that she did not intend to kill Mary. It was an accident that she deeply regretted. Journalists discovered that Amy was involved in a romantic relationship with the gym's owner, Paul. He sought to capitalize on the situation by attracting media attention. Paul even installed a hidden camera in his gym to secretly film a personal conversation with Amy. Paul admitted he enjoyed the media attention and was eager to appear in news stories, as they paid well. With the money from this exposure, Paul planned to buy a Ferrari. Once Amy realized that even Paul was exploiting her, she attempted to take her own life again. Subsequently, she was required to undergo treatment in a psychiatric clinic, where she stayed for several months. On December 2, Amy appeared in court. Mary felt the plea deal was unfair because it allowed Amy to be released after only 2 years and 9 months, a punishment that seemed inadequate given the severity of the crime. Mary, who survived the attack, suffered partial facial paralysis and hearing loss in her right ear due to the bullet lodged in her spine. The injury left her in constant pain and with vision problems. Doctors warned that if the bullet had moved, she could have been completely paralyzed or even killed. When Amy was given the opportunity to speak, she apologized and blamed Joey for everything. She claimed that he knew about her plan to shoot his wife from the beginning and even encouraged her. Although Amy wants to bring Joey to justice, there is no evidence linking him to the crime. Amy later admitted that she intended to kill Mary. Several witnesses confirmed that Amy had mentioned wanting to kill Mary. The investigation found that the gun was functioning properly and could not have been fired randomly, given the trajectory and force of the bullet. In addition, it was suspected that Amy and her accomplice Peter had taken steps to prepare for this trip, such as changing the license plate and purchasing weapons. This suggested that they were planning a targeted attack. During the trial, Amy's hopes of serving only 2 years and 9 months in prison were dashed. Instead, she pleaded guilty to first-degree assault with aggravated circumstances and received a 15-year sentence. Peter Gwagenti, who drove her to Mary's house, was arrested and charged with being an accessory to the crime and was sentenced to 6 months in prison. Joey appeared on several television shows with his wife to prove his innocence. They even went on a small press tour and appeared on various channels across the country. During this time, the prosecutor's office began to receive many calls from people who believed that Joey should also face legal consequences because they thought he was indirectly involved in the incident. The police could no longer ignore the accusations against Joey. The following April, Joey Buttafuoco was arrested and charged with sex with a minor. Joey reached a plea deal with the prosecutor and admitted his guilt. As a result, he served only 6 months in prison and paid a $5,000 fine. He claimed he had been wrongly convicted, portraying himself as the victim of a deceitful schoolgirl. After pleading guilty, he ended up serving only 4 months in prison before being released. In 1995, Joey was arrested again in Los Angeles for soliciting prostitution. He claimed he was innocent and that the incident was staged. As a result, he served the last 75 days of his sentence. During this time, Mary fell into a severe depression and took medication to cope with the pain. After the family moved to Los Angeles, she became an alcoholic but later went to rehab, which improved her life. Amy's time in prison was difficult. She complained that she was raped by prison guards multiple times. Amy wanted to be transferred to another facility, but the prison authorities refused. In 1999, after serving 7 years in prison, Amy was granted early parole. During a meeting with the parole board, she tearfully confessed that the attack on her lover's wife was entirely her idea. Realizing her wrongdoing led to her release. Meanwhile, Mary discovered that her husband had been cheating on her multiple times. Unable to bear her husband's constant infidelity, she filed for divorce in 2003 after 26 years of marriage. At the same time, Joey was arrested for attempted insurance fraud involving his car. He never learned from his mistakes. He remarried and continued to live an eccentric lifestyle. After the divorce, Mary had facial surgery that allowed her to smile normally and partially regain her hearing. During this time, her children were very supportive. In 2009, she published a book about her life story. For years, she harbored resentment toward Amy for shooting her. However, during her rehabilitation, Mary realized that it was time to let go of the past and stop punishing herself. This realization led her to forgive Amy. In 2010, Mary remarried and moved to California, where she became a grandmother and enjoyed a peaceful life. After her release from prison, Amy moved to Florida and wrote 2 books about her life. She sought fame and money, even creating a false identity. Amy began working as a webcam model and adult film actress, frequently appearing on talk shows to share her experiences. After marrying a former New York police officer and having 3 children, her marriage ended in divorce in 2015. Their eldest son stayed with his father, while Amy returned to Long Island with her 2 younger children and lived with her mother for a time. During this time, she worked as a stripper in a strip club but eventually quit. She continued to work as a webcam model. Her ex-husband did not support this lifestyle. He suggested that Amy buy a smaller house, preferably in a remote area where she could remain anonymous and find a regular job and live more modestly. However, she refused his offer. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Bodhisattva Potter. This is a story about 2 lovers who met in school and wanted to spend all their free time together, believing their love would last forever. However, they were unaware of how brutally their happiness could be shattered by an unexpected tragedy. Bodhisattva Potter was born in 1991 in Newport Beach, California to Rick Potter and Scherzer. Bodhisattva also has an older brother named Zen. At the time of Bodhisattva and Zen's birth, both parents were in their 30s and soon after, the family experienced significant career growth. Scherzer is a psychologist who specializes in working with autistic children. Her husband is a psychotherapist and also provides medical consultation. From a young age, Bodhisattva was very intelligent and kind. She was humble and maintained good relationships with everyone around her. All her teachers recognized her intellectual talent. Bodhisattva was also passionate about sports, especially gymnastics and basketball, and she pursued these hobbies and won several awards for her achievements. She also played the piano and sang. Her parents divorced in 1998. At the time, Bodhisattva was 8 years old and living in Newport Beach with her mother and brother. They moved to Hollandale, California, a small desert town with a population of just 6,000, about 2 hours away from their old home. Hollandale is an isolated community with a strong sense of community, with 2 large lakes that make it feel like an oasis in the desert. The town has about 2,000 homes and a well-developed sports and recreation infrastructure, making it feel like a small resort. Bodhisattva was accepted into the Lewis Center, an academy whose curriculum prepares students for entry into top universities. At this time, Zen moved back in with his father, and Bodhisattva stayed with his mother. Despite the distance, the 2 brothers often spent weekends and holidays together. Initially, Bodhisattva and her mother rented a house. In 2004, when she was 12 years old, her mother bought a plot of land near a lake to build her dream home. Bodhisattva was actively involved in the design of the new house, but the construction process took longer than expected due to high costs, so they continued to live in the rented house during this time. On Bodhisattva's 13th birthday, she gradually became more mature. She began to seek independence. Her mother recognized this change and allowed her daughter more freedom. Over time, Bodhisattva became interested in Hollywood and dreamed of becoming a film producer. By 2007, she was in high school and began dating Christopher Cody Thompson, her first love. They were a perfect match, sharing many interests in film, psychology, and architecture, and they enjoyed exploring abandoned buildings together. Cody, born in 1989 in Victorville, California, is 2 years older than Bodhisattva. He has 2 older sisters, Sarah and Katie. Cody is a young man passionate about nature and cycling, and he enjoys restoring custom bikes with his father. At the time he met Bodhisattva, Cody had been working as a teaching assistant for 2 years. People generally describe him as friendly and outgoing. Scherzer was surprised to find out that her daughter had a boyfriend. She felt that it was too early for her daughter to start a relationship and was prepared to intervene if necessary. However, as a psychologist, she realized that she needed to accompany her daughter. She understood that her daughter was growing up and that this journey could not be controlled by restrictions alone. Initially, she considered Cody to be a bit rude, which made her feel uncomfortable. However, as they began to communicate, they found common ground. The Scherzer soon realized that her initial judgment about Cody was wrong. He turned out to be a good person. She felt more secure about her daughter's relationship. Cody graduated from high school and began working for the family business, which helped him become financially independent. He was able to support himself and even buy his own car. He has a passion for exploring old buildings, so he scheduled a visit to an old military bunker that had been repurposed and is now open to the public. Initially, the place attracted many adventure lovers. Over time, it became a popular place for teenage parties. However, the place was not safe. The bunker was often used by addicts to do drugs, and people also came here to practice shooting for themselves. Despite these risks, Cody still wanted to visit because of its uniqueness. Many of his friends knew about it but disapproved of his hobby. However, Cody was attracted to the place and liked the feeling of being in a secret location. In December 2007, after turning 18, Cody planned to take his 16-year-old girlfriend, Bodhi, to the bunker to show her the place they both loved for exploring abandoned sites. Excited by the idea, Bodhi invited her mother to join them. Her mother Scherzer objected to the idea. She was shocked by the plans the couple had made. Scherzer warned that the place could be dangerous and forbade Bodhisattva from going there. Although Bodhisattva understood her mother's concerns, her rebellious teenage spirit got the better of her. She did not fully understand the dangers of the place. Despite her mother's warnings, she was determined to explore the bunker. In January 2008, Scherzer was in Newport on business. While her mother was away, Bodhisattva had a few days free to do whatever she wanted. She decided to take the opportunity to visit the shelter. At the time, Cody had planned to take 30 people from the school to the abandoned shelter in the woods. To get to the abandoned building, she asked her friend Andrew to drive her there. He picked Bodhisattva up from home and drove her there on the evening of Friday, January 4, 2008. Bodhisattva hid her intentions from her mother and brother. She told her brother that she was going to see their mother, while she assured her mother that she would stay home with her brother. Bodhisattva was clever enough to make her story sound believable, and her family believed her. On the evening of January 4th, when she and Andrew arrived at the bunker, several cars were there, including those of Cody and his friends. Everyone was enjoying the music and having a good time. Their group was quite large, making them feel safe. The teens explored the empty bunker and had fun until about 4 a.m. When everyone started to leave, Cody and Bodhisattva decided to stay and sleep overnight in his car under the stars, taking advantage of the time when their mother was not there. Bodhisattva and Cody fell asleep until Cody received a call from one of his friends. The friend had lost his iPad, but Cody found it in a car and promised to return it at their next meeting. After the call, Cody went back to sleep and did not contact anyone again. Around 4:30 a.m., Scherzer woke up with a sharp pain in her chest, feeling as if she had been stabbed. She felt worried about her daughter, but decided to wait until 6:30 to call Bodhisattva. It was their family's habit to start the day with a short conversation to ask how everyone was doing. However, when Scherzer called, Bodhisattva did not answer. Scherzer tried to call her daughter, but the call was unsuccessful. She then contacted Zen and discovered Bodhisattva's lie. Zen thought her sister was with their mother, while the mother believed Bodhisattva was with Zen. They discovered that Bodhisattva had gone with Andrew, who had picked her up from home and had taken her somewhere, leaving her family worried and angry. Scherzer also tried to contact Andrew, but was unsuccessful. Scherzer, who was in another city at the time, decided to contact the police. At that time, Bodhisattva had not been reached for about 10 hours, but the police explained that it was not enough time to officially classify her as missing. The police initially thought that Bodhisattva had simply run away or gone out with friends. Meanwhile, her mother felt helpless because she was far away. Scherzer's worries grew when she called Cody's mother, who had also not seen her son since the night before and was extremely worried. They began contacting all of their son's friends and discovered that the two had attended a party at an abandoned bunker the night before, and no one had heard from them since. This was Bodhisattva's mother's worst nightmare, as she considered the location to be one of the dangerous. Zen and his friends quickly arrived at the location and found Cody's car parked outside an abandoned building. Both the driver's and passenger doors were wide open, which added to their worries as there was no one inside. Zen and his friends grabbed flashlights and entered the building. The search continued for several hours, with them splitting up and searching different areas of the bunker. Eventually, one of the friends discovered Cody in a room of the abandoned building. He showed no signs of life. The most alarming detail was that Cody was missing an eye. And Bodhisattva was still missing. Zen immediately called 911 to report the incident. Around 3 p.m. that day, Cody's mother received a call informing her that her son had been shot. Upon hearing this, Bodhisattva's mother was extremely panicked, although she still held on to a faint hope that her daughter was alive. She then quickly went to the shelter to look for her daughter. Meanwhile, the police were on their way to the scene, but the journey took a long time. When the police arrived, they searched the bunker area, and some police were outside to question those who had witnessed the incident. The bunker was complex and confusing, like a maze. Inside, it was so dark that even the light of a few lanterns could not help the police gather information. The teenagers who found Cody's body helped the police locate him. He had a serious gunshot wound to the head, which caused him to lose an eye and eventually die. Cody's body was removed from the bunker, but the search did not end there. Because it was so dark inside, the police had to wait for generators and lights to be installed inside the bunker. Later, near where Cody's body was found, police also discovered Bodhisattva's body in the hallway. She had suffered gunshot wounds to the chest and head. There were no signs of rape. The weapon used was determined to be a handgun. Both victims had multiple wounds to their bodies. Unfortunately, there were no surveillance cameras inside the shelter. Police began questioning everyone who was at the party that night, hoping that someone might have seen something unusual. This information could be crucial in solving the case. None of the victims' belongings had been stolen, not even the iPad had been left in the car. There were no signs of sexual assault or struggle. Police were piecing together what might have happened on the night of the murder. After Cody's final phone call, the attackers forced the young couple out of the car and took them to a dark shelter, where they were shot one by one. It appears that Bodhisattva tried to escape but was caught at the end of the hallway and shot. The shocking murders of Bodhisattva and Cody caused widespread public outrage. Such a dangerous military site was easily accessible. It was not fenced, locked, or monitored. As a result, a debate arose over the demolition of the abandoned building. During the investigation, police learned that several years earlier, a young man had encountered a group of dangerous men in the area. The men were clean-shaven and acted aggressively, suggesting they were members of the same gang. However, the men were never seen again after that encounter. In their investigation, the police focused on a call made by a friend to Cody at 4:30 a.m., when Cody was still alive. Bodhisattva's mother then attempted to reach her daughter at 6:30 a.m. but was unable to make contact. This timeline indicates that the tragic events leading to the double murder occurred between these two calls, starting after 4:30 a.m. A large amount of evidence was collected at the crime scene. Forensic scientists had to analyze thousands of fingerprints and hundreds of spent cartridges, as well as a large amount of trash in the abandoned building, to determine what was related to the case. In addition, the victims' computers were confiscated for valuable information. Police believe that Cody and Bodhisattva may have had an argument with someone, leading to the attack. During questioning, some friends who attended the party recalled that 3 strangers entered the basement. These strangers, aged 17 to 18, arrived in a Honda Odyssey van around midnight and asked to join the party. They were allowed to stay and brought alcohol to share. Cody's group thought they were normal teenagers and didn't suspect anything unusual. However, none of Cody's friends could remember when the strangers left the party. On January 13th, the police received a crucial tip from Sean, an informant. He revealed that his friend, David Smith, had called him on the night of the murders, inviting Sean to a bunker for shooting practice. Sean declined the invitation. A few days later, David contacted him again, sounding very concerned. Sean asked David about recent events, and Sean received a vague answer that alluded to a serious crime. This led Sean to suspect that David might be involved in the double murder at the bunker, so he reported his concerns to the police. Police later interviewed a key witness, who identified David Smith as a 19-year-old from Limestone, about an hour and a half from Holy Dale. On the night of the murder, David and his friends Colin McLaughlin, 18, and Cameron Thompson, 16, had set out for a fun night out that turned deadly. They drove Cameron's mother's SUV into the desert, where they stumbled upon a bunker party. The teens gathered there became their targets, leading to the tragic events that unfolded. In 2007, David, a former high school track and field athlete, lost his athletic scholarship to the University of California, Riverside after a disagreement with the head coach. Unable to pay for college, he was expelled and moved in with his friend Cameron, who then introduced him to Colin. The three quickly became close friends, but their aggressive behavior scared the local residents. The three criminals were arrested on January 17th. But all three denied any involvement in the crime. During a police search of their home, the police found the murder weapon. In addition, blood was found on clothing and shoes, and tests confirmed that the blood belonged to Bodhisattva and Cody, who were murdered. Friends who were present at the bunker that night identified the attackers as strangers who had brought alcohol to the party. All of the teens came from troubled families. Colin's father was a police officer, which gave them access to the weapon used in the murder. Colin, considered the ringleader of the group, had struggled with mental health issues since he was 5 years old. By the age of 17, Colin had attended 7 different schools and had spent some time in an adult detention center. He had significant difficulties adapting socially, which were made worse by his use of alcohol and drugs. During the investigation, many witnesses reported his troubling behavior. Colin even confided in friends that he had thoughts of killing. When he was angry or had an argument with his parents, he would often threaten to kill them. As Colin entered his teens, many people began to fear him, especially when he started talking about mass murder online. During a search of Colin's belongings, police discovered evidence that he had a history of violence. Colin had repeatedly threatened to kill others, including writing detailed notes about shooting up classmates. While in school, he was evaluated by a psychiatrist and diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and he was put on medication. At age 16, Colin faced court charges for attempting to build an explosive device, a year before he killed Bodhisattva and Cody. He was placed in juvenile detention and, upon his release, was placed on probation for several months. Prior to the killings, he had stopped taking his bipolar medication. The suspects, Colin McLaughlin, Cameron Thompson, and David Smith, have not confessed to the crime. However, during pre-trial hearings, Colin was identified as the primary perpetrator of the murder and was released on $2 million bail. He faces a potential prison sentence of 111 years. In contrast, David Smith's bail was set at $1 million and he faces up to 81 years in prison for his involvement in the crime. In February 2009, the prosecutor's office announced its intention to pursue the death penalty against Colin, while David and Cameron were likely to receive life sentences. The defense argued that Colin, who suffers from bipolar disorder, should receive treatment instead of being detained or executed. As a result, a psychological evaluation was ordered. In 2010, 2 forensic psychiatrists evaluated Colin and determined that he was mentally sound and aware of his actions at the time of the crime, meaning he was sane and competent to stand trial. Bodhisattva's mother Scherzer believed that the killer should not be executed. She felt that the appropriate punishment would be imprisonment for all 3 criminals so that they could understand the severity of their actions. The case took a long time to resolve, lasting more than 4 years due to discussions about the evidence and the ages of the criminals. It was eventually decided to try the criminals as adults. In 2011, Cameron Thompson reached a deal with the prosecution. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter and attempted robbery. He agreed to testify against his 2 friends. Cameron explained that the 3 of them had planned to rob a car in the desert, but when they arrived, they found no one there. Instead, they stumbled upon a party in a nearby bunker. Initially, they asked to join and gain the trust of the teenagers at the party. But there were too many people and they realized that this was not the right time to strike. They decided to wait until most of the teens had left before attacking anyone. The criminals hid in a truck, armed with guns, and were not detected by Cody. When the couple fell asleep in the truck, the criminals sprang into action. They forced the sleeping couple out of the truck at gunpoint and took them to a dark, secluded area of the bunker. There, they forced the couple to their knees, and Cody was shot execution style. Bodhisattva tried to escape but was caught and shot by Colin. They then returned to Cody and shot him again. Unfortunately for the criminals, the couple had no valuables, so the robbery was unsuccessful. They then left the bunker and went home. As part of the deal, Cameron was sentenced to life in prison. Although he had the right to apply for parole, his request was denied and he remains in custody. Colin also accepted a plea deal. Colin remained mostly calm throughout the trial. However, there were instances where he laughed, stuck out his tongue, or acted defiantly, suggesting underlying mental health issues. As a result, Colin was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. In 2016, David Smith, a third defendant, also reached a deal. For his cooperation with police, he was sentenced to 50 years in prison and was eligible for parole after 12 years. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Rebecca Zahau. Rebecca Zahau was born on March 15, 1979, in Flam. She grew up in a large family. Rebecca's parents were devout Christians, and she was raised Protestant. Her family lived in Germany and Nepal for a while before moving to the United States in the early 2000s, settling in New York and California. Rebecca attracted the attention of many men, not only because of her looks, but also because of her charming personality. During her teenage years, Rebecca attended Calvary Chapel Bible College in Austria, where she met Neil Nail Poi, a man from Arizona who was 13 years her senior. She fell deeply in love with him, and in 2002, they married when she was 23. They later moved to Phoenix, where Rebecca worked at an eye clinic. This couple's marriage had its ups and downs, lasting for 8 years before they divorced in 2011. During the breakup, Rebecca experienced significant turmoil. In 2009, she was arrested and pleaded guilty to shoplifting after stealing $1,000 worth of jewelry. She then began dating Jonah Ashanama, 54. Jonah is the chairman of a multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical company. He is the 9th highest-paid CEO in Arizona, earning more than $6 million a year. Rebecca first met Jonah while working as a technician at Atal-Maloga, and they soon began dating. Their relationship became serious, although Rebecca was not yet divorced from Neil, and Jonah had been married twice before. His first marriage led to a 3-year custody battle over his 2 children. Jonah had a son, Maxwell Taryn, from his second marriage to Dina Romanoff in 2005. That marriage ended in divorce in 2010. After starting a relationship with Jonah, Rebecca quit her job at the eye clinic to spend more time with him and help care for the children. Rebecca lives in Jonah's massive mansion on Ocean Avenue in San Diego. However, Rebecca's life is not a fairy tale, and not everything is as it seems. The main issues stemmed from Jonah's 2 daughters from his first marriage, who did not get along with Rebecca. Their dislike for her became so intense that Rebecca considered either ending her relationship with Jonah. Despite this, Rebecca's biggest success was forming a strong bond with Jonah's youngest child, 6-year-old Maxwell. She cared for him like a mother, taking him to soccer practice, reading him bedtime stories, playing with him, and cooking for him as part of their daily routine. In July 2011, while Jonah was away on a business trip, tragedy struck. He believed his children were safe in Rebecca's care. Rebecca, along with younger sister visiting from Missouri, and Maxwell are both at home, each busy with their own activities. Everything seemed normal until Rebecca went into the bathroom. After a while, she was startled by a loud noise. Hurriedly dressing, Rebecca called out to Maxwell and younger sister, hoping for a response, but received no response. When she leaned over the railing, she found a horrifying sight. Maxwell was lying face down on the floor next to a fallen chandelier, surrounded by a pool of blood. Rebecca's younger sister, Zena, called 911 after Maxwell fell from the second floor. When paramedics arrived, they rushed him to the children's hospital. Maxwell had fallen over the railing and hit his head on a chandelier. He landed face down and suffered serious injuries to his face and spinal cord, causing his heart to stop and cutting off oxygen to his brain. Doctors attempted to help Maxwell breathe, but unfortunately, the boy was deprived of oxygen for nearly 30 minutes, resulting in irreversible brain damage. Tragically, the Maxwell died 5 days later. Police investigated the incident and on July 26, concluded that Maxwell's death was an accident. Maxwell ran away down the upstairs hallway. Before he could stop himself, he fell over the second-floor railing. In an attempt to catch himself, he tried to grab the chandelier but instead hit the stairs railing on the way down. He landed hard on the floor. It seemed like a tragic accident, and many accepted it as such. Now, let's go back to July 12, 2011, the day after Maxwell's accident. Rebecca took her sister Zena to the airport and then picked up Jonah's brother Adam, who flew in from Tennessee. Meanwhile, Maxwell was still in the intensive care unit. Jonah then visited his son at the hospital while Rebecca and Adam stayed at the mansion. Adam stayed in a guest house on the sprawling estate, while Rebecca stayed alone in the mansion. Details of that evening are unclear, but neighbors reported loud music coming from the house throughout the night. The next morning, around 6:45 a.m., Adam awoke to a horrifying scene on the mansion's balcony. Rebecca's body was hanging there, with her hands tied behind her back and her ankles bound with red rope. A long-sleeved t-shirt was wrapped around her head. Adam quickly called 911. When asked about the girl's condition, Adam said he didn't know. Adam then cut the rope and tried to resuscitate her while waiting for the ambulance, but it was too late. 2 days after Maxwell's tragic death, Rebecca also died. The San Diego Sheriff's Department quickly began an investigation. In Rebecca's room, they discovered a red rope tied to the foot of the bed, extending out onto the balcony. What stood out, however, was a book on magic lying on the bed, with drawings of women with their hands tied behind their backs. The Rebecca's DNA was discovered on the knots of the rope and on the kitchen knife she used to cut the rope. Additionally, black paint stains were found on Rebecca's hands and the rope. There were no DNA or fingerprint traces from any unknown person. An autopsy conducted by the San Diego Medical Examiner revealed that Rebecca had sustained a traumatic brain injury. Several months later, on September 2, 2011, the Sheriff's Department officially concluded that Rebecca Zahau had taken her own life out of guilt related to Maxwell's tragic accident that had occurred just 2 days earlier. To back up these claims, police shared detailed findings, including demonstrating how Rebecca was able to tie herself up. According to them, the story begins with a late-night call from Adam, informing Rebecca that Maxwell was in critical condition and might not survive. Shortly before 1 a.m. on July 13, Rebecca began to execute her plan. She undressed and tied one end of a rope to the foot of her bed, then fashioned a noose with the other end. Afterward, she went out onto the balcony with the rope, tied her ankles together, and secured her hands behind her back with it. Ultimately, she leaned forward over the edge of the balcony and fell 9 feet. Rebecca lost consciousness within 15 seconds and died approximately 20 minutes later. Police reported that it was clear Rebecca died as a result of her own actions and by her own choice. Rebecca's family refused to accept the police explanation for her death. They were convinced that it was murder. Rebecca's family, including her first husband Neil, never thought she would intentionally harm herself. Just the day before her death, Rebecca had spoken to her sister Mary, in which she showed no signs of depression. While Rebecca expressed sadness about Maxwell, she assured her sister that she had no intention of taking drastic action. Additionally, Rebecca had strong religious beliefs and a deep love for her family. It is hard to believe that she would consider such an act. The Rebecca was buried on July 27, 2011, in St. Joseph, Missouri, but the fight for justice for Rebecca's family was just beginning. They publicly expressed doubts about the police findings, believing that the police was rushed. Determined to prove that Rebecca was murdered, they hired their own police and lawyers. The family also sought legal representation and pushed to have the case reopened. Upon reopening the case, they presented several compelling points. First, forensic evidence suggested that Rebecca may have suffered a head injury, but the medical examiner dismissed this claim without strong justification. Additionally, the police did not obtain information from Adam's mobile phone or review his messages to Rebecca on the night of her death. At the family's request, pathologist Dr. Cyril Wedge conducted a second examination of the body. He concluded that the fractures in Rebecca's throat were indicative of manual strangulation, suggesting that she may not have died by her own hand. During the department's investigation, several pieces of information were uncovered, including evidence that Rebecca had been abused before her death. Rebecca's family identified a prime suspect, Adam Shacknai. In February 2018, Rebecca's relatives filed a $10 million wrongful death lawsuit. Adam was accused of conspiring with Maxwell's mother, Dina, and her twin sister, Nina, to kill Rebecca out of revenge. They blamed Rebecca for Maxwell's accident while he was in her care. It was revealed that shortly after Maxwell's accident, around 11 p.m., Nina called Rebecca to discuss the incident. Rebecca did not answer, and surveillance camera footage showed Dina and Nina at the hospital that night when Rebecca died, leading to the sisters being cleared of any involvement. Rebecca's family's attorney accused Adam of assaulting Rebecca. The attorney also accused Adam of raping Rebecca and strangling her, then orchestrating her death. In response, Adam's defense attorney argued that there was no evidence linking him to Rebecca's death. He pointed out that Rebecca's fingerprints and DNA were found on the knife and rope used. A civil trial then took place in April 2018, lasting a month. During the trial, the jury found Adam liable for Rebecca's death. As a result, he was ordered to pay $5.2 million to Rebecca's family for their pain and suffering. Since this was a civil trial, a unanimous decision was not required. Adam did not face any criminal charges, so he could not be sentenced to prison, even though he was convicted. In December 2018, the San Diego Sheriff's Department confirmed that it would not overturn the original verdicts in the case. Civil verdicts can be appealed, and in February 2019, Adam appealed the civil court decision, arguing that there were procedural errors and misconduct among the jurors. Adam then reached a settlement that dismissed the civil lawsuit and reduced the original $5 million settlement to $2 million. Adam was furious about the settlement, claiming that it had been made without his consent. He criticized the judge for being incompetent in granting the settlement without his or his attorney's input. In response, the judge declaring that the civil lawsuit was now over. The jury's verdict in civil court found Adam Shacknai guilty of murdering Rebecca Zahau, and the verdict remains unchanged. However, Rebecca's family is determined to pursue further justice. They have vowed to continue their efforts until Adam is brought to justice. In August 2019, they announced a $100,000 reward for anyone who can provide information about the events surrounding Rebecca's death. Their attorney stated that it is important to gather all possible evidence and urged the sheriff to reopen the investigation immediately. The family is determined to fight the injustice Rebecca faced and will not give up. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Sonia Ivanova. Sonia, a 19 years old, a Native American resident, grew up in a small village about 180 kilometers southeast of Nome, Alaska, USA. She dreamed of living and studying in Hawaii, but she needed to earn money first. Determined to make a change, she decided to take action. Along with her best friend, Timer, she moved to Nome, where she got a job as a hospital administrator. Timer found work as a hotel receptionist. They shared an apartment and felt comfortable in their new surroundings. Without a car, they walked everywhere. Sonia's family was concerned for her safety because there had been incidents of Native American residents disappearing in Alaska. They were worried because she was too naive and gullible, making her vulnerable to deception. On Sunday, August 10, 2003, Sonia and Timer went to a bar to relax with friends. They stayed until 11 p.m., then left. Timer went to spend the night with other friends since she had to work in 6 hours. Sonia, having a day off, decided to enjoy a walk in the summer rain, which she found comforting and warm. As they said goodbye, they didn't realize that it would be the last time they would see each other. At 5 a.m., Timer came home to get ready for work. She was surprised to see that Sonia was not sleeping at home. At first, she thought Sonia might have slept over at other friends' houses. Throughout the day, she tried contacting Sonia multiple times, but all attempts failed, which made her worried. She decided to call Sonia's sister, Christina, and Christina's husband, Tim, but they also didn't know where Sonia was. Tuesday came, and Sonia still hadn't returned home, increasing Timer's anxiety to the point of panic. She remembered that Sonia never went anywhere without makeup. If Sonia had planned to spend 2 days with friends, Sonia will definitely stop by the house to pick up mascara and lipstick. After finishing her work shift at 5:15 p.m., she contacted the police to report Sonia missing. The police Reburn was skeptical, he thinking Sonia might be with friends, and asked Timer to wait. None of the people interviewed knew where Sonia had gone. Christina and Tim were also actively searching. They searched every part of the city and questioned everyone about Sonia's whereabouts. Their next lead was a young man named Kyun, who was a friend of Sonia and whom she apparently liked, but they couldn't locate him either. All their hopes were placed on the police. However, initially, the Nome police were not interested in searching for Sonia. It was only after the hospital where Sonia worked reported her disappearance that investigators seriously took on the case. Reburn questioned Timer once more. According to her, there is no problem between them. Sonia seemed happy. There were no arguments, and if they ever had misunderstandings, they would talk it out and quickly reconcile. Then, she joined the search operation with many volunteers and, along with her friend, searched for Sonia on the outskirts of the city. A moment later, the police received a call. Timer was hopeful, thinking that Sonia had been found. Indeed, Sonia was found, but the news brought no joy. A few hours earlier, a fireman noticed fresh tire tracks on a deserted road and decided to investigate. Soon, he was at the police station and tell everything. The officer Brand asked the fireman to show the location, and together they went to an abandoned gold mine. What the officer saw there shocked him. Although he couldn't see the woman's face, he immediately knew it was Sonia. When he learned what happened to Sonia, Timer felt extremely painful. Even after 20 years, the pain still lingers in her heart. It was extreme sadness, hopelessness, and anger. She was primarily angry with herself, believing that if she hadn't left Sonia alone to visit her friends for the night, Sonia might still be alive. Meanwhile, the investigation into the terrible murder began. Due to lack of skills and equipment, local detectives had difficulty investigating the case. So they turned to the Alaska Bureau of Investigation, ABI, for help, which specializes in investigating complex crimes such as murder. When investigators arrived, they immediately secured the scene. They using road barriers and shelter tents, fearing that precipitation might destroy important evidence. During their investigation, they discovered blood traces that had been driven over by a car. So, they suspected the perpetrator might have been responsible. Upon closer inspection, detectives noticed an unusual detail about the tire marks. One tread was different from the other three. This suggested that the suspect's vehicle had two different types of tires. Additionally, they found blue paint stains, likely from a vehicle. Because the paint stains are quite high above the ground, investigators theorized that the vehicle could have been an SUV or a truck. Further investigation revealed that Sonia had not been raped. There was no DNA evidence on her body or at the crime scene. This brutal murder has left the town's residents bewildered. And they do not know who is responsible. Sonia, a friendly girl, had no known enemies and hadn't been in conflicts with anyone. Officer Reburn revisited the list of Sonia's friends and was particularly interested in Daniel Ango, also known as Kyun. Tim and Christina had tried to reach him during the search for Sonia, but he did not respond. Police were aware of Kyun because previously, his ex-girlfriend had filed a complaint against him for mistreating her. He was considered a suspect, not only because of his temper but also because he owned a blue truck, have different tires. When investigators examined the vehicle, they discovered a blue awning with blood stains inside, as well as blood on white sneakers and one of the 3 guns in the truck. The tires were tested with a special chemical, revealing additional blood stains. Kyun was brought in for questioning. He stated that he hadn't seen Sonia for 2 weeks. He also was out of town hunting with friends when she disappeared. Despite this, detectives decided to investigate further. Later, he explained that the blood in his car came from a hare he accidentally hit. He said he had to put the hare out of its misery, but then suggested it might have been a porcupine he shot while hunting. With that, the interrogation ended, and he left the police station calmly. Timer and Christina are unhappy with the police investigation and feel it is stalling. A week after Sonia's body was discovered, they went to the known police station and attached a photo of her to the wall outside. An officer came out, told them to leave, and removed the photo. Despite this, Timer showed up at the station every morning at 8 a.m., standing there to demand answers. The public did not know that investigators had identified Kyun as the prime suspect and were not investigating anyone else. However, the detectives were mistaken. The blood found in Kyun's truck was not human, the tire tracks at the crime scene didn't match his vehicle, and the blue paint traces didn't match his truck's color. Kyun's story was true, and the investigation was halted. Only 2 of the 8 local police officers are still actively investigating the case, Officer Reburn, who had received information from Timer about Sonia, and Officer Brian, who was the first to arrive at the crime scene. However, Brian was unhappy with the investigation because he had been assigned to the night shift, which prevented him from conducting interrogations. Red Bear, according to Brian, didn't seem to take his job seriously and was slow to share new information with him. Brian is determined to find out the truth. He decided to review the case file during his night shifts. Suddenly, he noticed a message from a woman. She mentioned that she had seen Sonia while Sonia was missing. She saw Sonia get into the car. This was new information for Brian, and he quickly sought out the woman. He had a detailed conversation with her. The woman's name was Florence. She was surprised that no one had contacted or interviewed her. She explained that she had been standing outside her house with her sister, smoking, when Sonia walked by and greeted them. Then, a car passed by and blocked Sonia's path. He said something to her, after which she got into the car. They drove off in the direction where Sonia's body was found a few days later. Officer Brian thanks Florence and he begins to think about her statement. He was convinced that the ABA agents needed to return to the city and continue the investigation. One detail from Florence's story unsettled Brian. She had seen a sticker on the car Sonia entered, which read Nome Police Department. This suggested that one of his colleagues might be Sonia's killer. He needed to process this information. The ABA team, led by Eric Burette, returned to Nome to investigate Florence's testimony further. Eric informs the group about two policemen who were on duty at the station the night Sonia went missing, Matt Ons and Stan Ulker. At that point, both of whom had been with the Nome Police Department for 3 years. There were several people involved in the case, and everyone was required to go to the central office of Polly Angie for questioning and a lie detector test. However, something strange occurred. A couple of weeks after the crime, an officer discovered that a service car was missing. That same night, a search operation was launched. At 2:51, Matt called his colleagues to report that he had found the car in an abandoned area, near where the body was hidden. 2 minutes later, he called again, he saying, "There were shots there." Several police officers rushed to the scene, but they found nothing unusual. Police found the missing car in a safe place, dark place. Matt admitted that he was terrified when he heard the shots and thought about his 4-year-old son possibly growing up without a father. He said that perhaps he was not cut out for police work. The officers inspected the stolen car and immediately noticed the broken window on the driver's side. Next, they saw an envelope on the driver's seat, amidst the glass shards. Inside the envelope was a letter, in which the stranger expressed his hatred for the police. They claimed that stealing the car was easy and that Sonia was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, implying that it was not her fault. The person mentioned that Sonia mistook him for a policeman. He warned them to be careful, saying that he was watching their every move. He threatens that if they leave him alone, he would leave them alone, but if they came too close, he would shoot them in the head. The unknown person not only left this threatening letter in the car but also included evidence in the envelope to remove any doubt that he was the one who killed Sonia. Along with the note, police found a membership card for the fitness center Sonia used to visit. How did the criminal steal the police car? It was later discovered that official cars were almost always unlocked, and the keys were often left in the ignition. Therefore, stealing the car is not difficult. Initially, 2 officers, Stan and Matt, were questioned. Their testimonies were almost identical. That evening, they were called to a domestic violence incident. The man who caused the incident attacked them, then he was arrested and taken to the police station. Stan stayed in the office to handle paperwork, while Matt patrolled the streets alone. This occurred between 1 o'clock and 1:30 a.m. Matt reported hearing gunshots, but he spent an hour trying to locate their source without success. His shift ended at 7 a.m., and he went home. Both officers, Stan and Matt, stated they did not see Sonia that night and were not involved in her death. Since their stories matched, a lie detector test was used to further investigate the incident. When asked, did they offer Sonia a ride on August 11, 2003? Both individuals answered no. They gave the same response when questioned about her murder. Further questions focused on Matt's sex life, leaving him confused. It seemed he didn't understand why these questions were being asked. At that time, Matt didn't know that Eric, the lead investigator, was also in the room and is keeping an eye on him. Eric had learned from colleagues that Matt was a typical person, although he didn't always follow the rules. Matt preferred night shifts and often volunteered for them. Occasionally, he invited friends to ride in the patrol car with him, despite repeated warnings from management not to do so. In March 2003, Matt was accused of using his squad car to meet women. He allegedly having sex with them while on duty. Unlike many who use Tinder and similar apps, he had his own method. He would drive slowly in the patrol car, approach women, and offer them rides. When confronted with these allegations, he denied them, and the investigation continued. The city discovered that Matt's personal life was troubled. In a custody battle in court, he is trying to sue his wife for custody of their 4-year-old son. The child currently lives with his mother, but the boy also visits his father because his parents are separated. On the morning of August 12th, Matt called his wife to say he couldn't pick up their son because he had to work on a missing girl case, which might take a long time. His wife confirmed this to the FBI. When asked if she was sure the phone conversation took place on August 12th, she affirmed with certainty, because that day was her birthday. At that point, when Sonia had not yet been reported missing, then how could Matt know she was missing? On October 25th, he was arrested and charged with Sonia's murder. This news didn't surprise everyone. 6 women reported to the police, accusing Matt of not only failing to maintain order and security on the streets, but also posing a threat to many people. They felt relieved after his arrest. One woman claimed that when she was drunk, he detained and assaulted her in the squad car. She didn't report it immediately, fearing disbelief due to her intoxication. 2 other complaints were filed against him, but they were not properly addressed. Investigators have no evidence to prove Matt was involved in the murder. They don't know where Sonia's clothes are or where he hid the weapon. And they found nothing suspicious in the patrol cars. The detectives worried that their information wouldn't convince the jury of Matt's guilt. However, they were about another lead, a hunting camp about 30 kilometers from the city. He frequently visited this camp, and a witness saw him burning his gloves there. If true, he might have destroyed other evidence at the camp. At there, investigators thoroughly examined the ashes. Finally, they found an important piece of evidence: burned shoes with laces bearing the imprint of the shoe manufacturer Schumacher. Sonia wore shoes of this brand. The ashes were collected and taken to Nome. Over several days, detectives searched for more evidence. They soon found several more pairs of shoes, parts of a bra, and a button inscribed with LT. Sonia's sister confirmed that the button belonged to Sonia's clothes. A mailbox key was found in the hallway, and it turned out to be the key to Matt's mailbox. Then, a police department employee suggested where the crime weapon might be. Investigators suspected the weapon could be a .22 caliber Jennings pistol, which was indeed found in the storage facility. According to the officers, Matt took it for his criminal activities and later returned it. Unfortunately, this could not be proven due to a lack of evidence. 2 months after Matt's arrest, Sonia's relatives and ABA employees encountered a new issue. He hired an experienced lawyer and was released on bail with his help. The residents of Nome were shocked that the killer was freely roaming their small town, but they were powerless to stop it. Matt's trial began on January 18, 2005, but after 40 hours of jury deliberations, the jury still failed to reach a verdict. The prosecution's evidence was not convincing, and Matt walked out of court again a free man. In the second trial, the prosecution presented evidence to the jury, including Florence's testimony about seeing Sonia get into a car labeled Nome Police Department, Matt's wife's testimony about Sonia's disappearance shortly before Sonia was officially reported missing, traces of Sonia's clothing found along with the key to a box, and the murder weapon that was stolen and later returned. However, Matt's lawyers challenged all these points. They argued that Matt's wife had likely misremembered the date. They also contended that the traces of clothing and the gun were not connected to Sonia's murder. Because of this conflict, the jury could not reach a consensus on whether Matt was guilty or not, so he was acquitted at trial. This case has made the public extremely indignant. Many believe Matt was guilty of the crime, but he managed to escape justice. Investigator Eric, however, found a new lead. As astonishing as it seems, this is indeed what happened. Eric's neighbor said Charlotte, a friend of Matt's who was staying at his house, shared the news. It turns out Charlotte found a membership card in Matt's bedroom. If so, then this incident may be related to Sonia's murder. Eric asked the neighbor whether Charlotte told him about the discovery before or after the police car was found. It turned out Charlotte mentioned it before the theft. This confirmed Eric's suspicion that Matt stole the car himself to distract the investigation. But who found the patrol car? Matt stated that gunshots were heard 2 minutes after the car was located. That night, Matt left without his service weapon or flashlight. This raised the possibility that he might have planted Sonia's fitness club membership card on the front seat. Charlotte was called as a witness during the second court hearing and questioned again. When asked if she saw Sonia's card or wallet on Matt, she denied it. Despite being under oath, her answers didn't change. Investigators, however, suspected that she might be withholding such information. They were prepared and presented evidence in court of an earlier conversation between the officer and Charlotte. In that discussion, she admitted she had seen Sonia's ID or membership card along with other personal belongings. Charlotte eventually decided to testify in court. Her testimony proved to be crucial. Matt Ons was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 101 years in prison. This tragic incident has left a stain on the city, causing people to lose faith in law enforcement. Sonia's family chose to hold an open casket funeral, allowing everyone to approach and say their final goodbyes. However, justice prevailed, and Matt Ons received the punishment he truly deserved. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Nicole Pitts. Nicole Pitts was born in late February 1973 and grew up in King County. She attended Eastern Washington College. Every summer, her family traveled to Seattle and spent much of their time at Lake Sammamish. Nicole had a close relationship with her mother, Gail, and had a good relationship with her father, Rod. In the 1990s, while working at a fitness club, she met her future husband, David. Their relationship quickly developed into a romantic relationship. After spending some time together, they married in 2002 in Maui, Hawaii. In 2005, the couple bought a condominium in Linwood, Washington, a place where they could enjoy their time together. At that time, Linwood was a quiet town with a population of fewer than 40,000 people. It featured narrow streets and many bars and restaurants, similar to their previous home. The young family quickly fell in love with the area. Nicole was outgoing and made friends easily. Within days of moving in, she had made many new friends. She is an animal lover and often walks her dog around the neighborhood or relaxes at home with her 2 cats. She cares for them as if they were her own children. Nicole's career was going well. After finishing school, she worked at a fitness club for a while, before becoming a corporate manager at a mobile phone company. She lived close to where she worked. Nicole was an important member of the team because she easily connected with her colleagues and helped them solve problems. However, she faced challenges from an early age. She was introduced to alcohol as a teenager and eventually became an alcoholic. This started when her parents divorced, which left her feeling lost. Her mother, a flight attendant, was often away on business trips, so Nicole was often left in the care of her elderly grandmother, which led to her hanging out with the wrong crowd. Fortunately, Nicole's parents noticed their daughter's issue early on, and with the support of her family, she was able to overcome her bad habit. They attended Alcoholics Anonymous meetings together, where she received guidance, making her journey easier. However, her alcohol use had lasting effects, resulting in significant health problems. At age 21, Nicole was diagnosed with endometriosis and underwent 3 surgeries. Following these procedures, she was prescribed pain medication to control her chronic pain. By 2006, 32-year-old Nicole had been avoiding alcohol for 8 years. Despite this, she remained an active and valuable member of her Alcoholics Anonymous group. She attended every meeting, viewing them not just as a way to manage her own recovery, but also as an opportunity to support others in their struggles. Nicole understood the challenges of the fight against addiction. From a young age, she had a passion for cooking, which only grew stronger over time. She loved preparing a variety of dishes and often brought her homemade meals to work for her husband, David, who always appreciated her efforts. Nicole was very close to her mother and called her every day. In early 2006, she was excited about her upcoming 33rd birthday. However, just 2 days before her birthday, she unexpectedly missed an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in nearby Renton, surprising everyone. That night, David returned home late from work and went straight to bed, thinking Nicole would still be home. However, the next morning, he discovered that she had left, and he never saw her again. David tried calling Nicole to check on her, but she didn't answer his calls. He was worried that she might be upset because he hadn't spoken to her at dinner the night before and had gone to bed early from exhaustion. Despite his attempts to contact her, Nicole remained silent, which made him even more worried. He also contacted some of her friends and her mother, but no one had seen her. That evening, when David returned home and Nicole had not returned, he became alarmed. Worried, he decided to go to the sheriff's office, but was told that there was not enough time to classify her as missing. However, David convinced the police to investigate her whereabouts, as her behavior was very unusual, and he feared that something might have happened to her. Police arrived at David's home and discovered that, in addition to Nicole, her 2003 Volkswagen Jetta was also missing. Nicole had left for work that morning, but was gone. Her mother became concerned about Nicole's disappearance, especially since she had not received any calls from her daughter all day, which worried her. After police confirmed that no one had seen Nicole since she went missing, they began searching for her that same day. The family of the Nicole booked flights to Washington, hoping for the best and wanting to assist in finding their daughter as quickly as possible. Everyone was confused because Nicole was known to be reliable and responsible. She would never have vanished or ignored calls. Even if she couldn't answer right away, she would have called back soon. As her silence continued, her parents and husband grew increasingly worried. Those involved in the search for Nicole sprang into action immediately. Nicole's mother and stepfather went straight to the police upon arriving in the city. Members of the Alcoholics Anonymous Club, who cared deeply for Nicole and wanted to support her family, also joined the search efforts. The club was significant to Nicole, as she never missed a meeting and was set to receive an award for 8 years of sobriety, which she took great pride in. There was no reason for her to leave or abandon everything. Nicole's voicemail was filled with calls from friends and family, but none of them had been able to reach her. Some were concerned that Nicole might have relapsed, despite successfully battling her addiction for years. The police were actively searching for her, searching the surrounding areas of Linwood, but they found nothing. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents took action by creating a website to gather information about Nicole. Many people responded to the family's call for help, but most of the messages were just well wishes, and the little information they received turned out to be false. The search seemed to stall until a new event changed the course of the investigation. On February 7, a local resident was jogging near a wooded area of San Francisco Park, near a small lake. He accidentally discovered a strange object under a raspberry bush. Curious, he approached and was horrified to discover the body of a girl. A nearby witness quickly called the police. The police arrived in time, and acquaintances recognized the body as Nicole's. Forensic experts later confirmed that there was no evidence of rape. After the autopsy in the laboratory, it was proven that the Nicole had received multiple injuries during the beating, but the cause of death was asphyxia. The Nicole had multiple blunt force injuries on her legs, torso, and head, indicating a brutal murder driven by personal hatred. This raised the question, who could have done this? Nicole had no known enemies. The case was changed from a disappearance to a murder investigation. The news of her death was devastating for David and parents. News of her death devastated David and her parents. Police began investigating her bank card transactions to trace her final movements. They discovered that her card was last used on January 30 in a nearby town where she had paid for gas. Police requested video footage from the gas station, suspecting that the killer may have made the purchase instead of Nicole and hoping to identify him in the footage. While police wait for surveillance camera footage, they continue to search for Nicole's car, as it may contain important information for the case. Police reviewed Nicole's identity and social connections, but still found no clues. Nicole was known as one of the friendliest members of her work group and club. She had no enemies. Instead, she was a devoted friend, a loving wife, a caring daughter, and a skilled employee who loved her pets. Nicole even turned her own struggle with alcohol into a positive by supporting others who were trying to get sober, setting an example for them. While the police were searching for the car, her relatives and friends shared information about the missing car and Nicole's situation. They publicly appealed for help, urging people to be aware of the car and avoid touching it. Flyers were distributed that stressed the importance of calling the police immediately if the car was discovered, as the car was linked to Nicole's murder. This prompted local residents to pay attention to Nicole's car. On February 21, 2006, her car was discovered parked near the university. Police quickly seized the car for forensic analysis, hoping to gather evidence to arrest the perpetrator and piece together the events surrounding the tragedy. Inside the car, they discovered a large amount of trash and various items, including books and sports equipment. Police discovered that after Nicole went missing, someone had used her ID and credit cards. Police are investigating the possibility that Nicole's car may have broken down on the way and she was picked up by a stranger and harmed, and the location of her car was unusual because Nicole was supposed to be traveling to another city. The position of the car seat suggested that it had been driven by someone much larger and taller than her. In the lab, experts meticulously measured the seat position to gather clues about a potential suspect. They found DNA evidence inside the car, including hair and a single fingerprint. Police collected DNA and checked. Several patrol officers searched the area where the car was found. They asked anyone nearby if they had seen Nicole's car or who had parked it, but this did not yield any useful information. The police discovered that the car had been parked in the lot since February 10, as an illegal parking ticket from that date was stuck to the windshield. Unfortunately, there were no surveillance cameras available to assist in the investigation. Forensic tests showed that all traces of DNA in her car belonged to Nicole and David. The investigation yielded no new information to solve the case. By early April, there had been no progress. Nicole's parents had offered a $10,000 reward for any information that could lead to the arrest of the perpetrator. During this time, Nicole's mother, Gail, made frequent appearances on various television channels to raise awareness of the case. After a while, Nicole's family had to return to Arizona to work, but they kept in touch with the police who were handling the investigation. Nicole's father, Rod, was heartbroken and frustrated that the investigation was taking so long. Despite their efforts, the investigation continued without any breakthroughs. In September, the case was handed over to an experienced police officer. The new police quickly requested a search warrant for the house of the Nicole, which had not been done before. He aimed to find clues among her belongings, particularly on Nicole's computer. Unfortunately, the house revealed no signs of a crime, no blood or other evidence. The computer also yielded no useful information. Police continued to interview witnesses and acquaintances of Nicole. One of them was Barbara, a friend who had met Nicole at an Alcoholics Anonymous club. They had planned to meet at a coffee shop the evening Nicole went missing, but she never showed up. At first, Barbara thought Nicole was just running late. Then Barbara tried calling Nicole several times that day, but Nicole did not answer any of her calls. During this time, the police still had no clues to the case. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents, Rob and Gail, were at their home in Arizona. Their grief did not subside for a year. Feeling desperate, they decided to hire a private investigator because they were puzzled by the inconsistencies in the case. Nicole had left the house without her wedding ring, which was very unusual for someone who was so proud of her marriage and who would never willingly remove such a meaningful symbol. A private investigator began his investigation, but no leads were found. Nicole's family then increased the reward for information about the criminal to $25,000. Organizations focused on fighting crime and finding missing persons contributed an additional $1,000. The community remained tense, knowing that a dangerous criminal was still at large, the perpetrator seemingly without a motive, suggesting that he could be a madman ready to strike at any time. The police then requested a search warrant for Nicole's computer, believing it might contain clues about the criminal. In October 2009, the private investigator hired by Nicole's parents was charged with fraud. He falsely claimed to have found evidence in the case, but said he needed money to handle it. Her parents gave him more money, but then the private investigator disappeared and took on another case. As a result, his license was revoked. Nicole's parents no longer have a private investigator and no leads on the identity of the killer. In 2011, 5 years after Nicole's death, the investigation was still ongoing, but no significant updates were made. On March 21, 2012, the final suspect was arrested and revealed to be Nicole's husband, David. By this time, police had enough evidence against him. He was held in custody with bail set at $1 million. The prosecutor noted that the case had progressed significantly due to new technologies that were previously unavailable, especially in the field of forensic science. Police found that David's account of the night before Nicole's disappearance did not seem convincing. Additionally, police noted that only David and Nicole's DNA and fingerprints were found in her car. If strangers had been in the car, their fingerprints would still be there because they had not been erased. If the criminal had tried to erase the fingerprints, there would have been no fingerprints left. The driver's seat was adjusted to fit David's size, and surveillance footage from a gas station captured a person resembling him. After Nicole went missing, he used her cell phone to make multiple calls from various locations around the city. Police believed he was trying to throw the investigation off track. However, modern tracking technology allowed them to pinpoint the exact location of the calls, proving that Nicole could not have been there at the time because she was dead. Notably, both Nicole's and her husband's phones worked in the same areas. Strangulation, the method of murder, usually indicates a personal connection between the killer and the victim. Evidence found at the crime scene indicated that the killer was someone close to Nicole. This is consistent with the fact that she was not sexually assaulted. The medical examiner determined Nicole's time of death. It was found that she was killed at night or early in the morning while still in bed. Her limbs were clean, with no signs of struggle. Forensic experts determined the time of death by examining Nicole's stomach contents. They found that the food Nicole had eaten the night before was still undigested, suggesting that she had been murdered before she got up to go to work the next morning. Although they appeared to be a loving couple, it was clear that this was just a cover, and there were multiple reasons behind the crime. At the time, the family was facing serious financial difficulties. David is quite the party animal. He enjoys drinking and smoking marijuana, which puts a dent in the family budget. Nicole spent a lot of time and effort dealing with her addiction and had been trying to stay sober for years. David was jealous of his wife's strength. He also had affairs, and during the investigation, it was discovered that he had had at least 4 affairs. His lifestyle meant that he often pressured his wife into having sex. He even tried to drug her at a club to convince her, but she refused. This made him angry. He often met women at clubs, which led to sexual encounters. Just days after Nicole went missing, he began seeking new relationships. By the time he was arrested, David had remarried and had a child. This was especially painful for Nicole's parents, as their daughter had always wanted children, but David had no interest in that. Furthermore, David quickly began collecting documents to claim Nicole's life insurance. After gathering all the information, David was called in for questioning. At the police station, he denied any involvement in the murder. When asked to take a lie detector test, he agreed, but the results showed that he had lied. He was eventually arrested and charged with murder, but David firmly denied any involvement in the crime. The trial started in September 2013, 7 years after Nicole passed away. Her family and friends gathered in the courthouse, hoping for justice. The defense lawyer for the David argued that Nicole's death was linked to her relapsed alcohol addiction and possibly a new addiction to prescription drugs. He pointed to an empty pill bottle found during a search of the bathroom as evidence of this. And the defense insisted that all the evidence against David was circumstantial and that the case was based on speculation. Nicole's parents testified in court that David did not participate in the search efforts, did not help distribute flyers, and only pretended to be upset. Nicole's mother explained that the medication in question was a prescription painkiller prescribed to her daughter to treat severe abdominal pain caused by her endometriosis, which had significantly improved her condition. Prosecutors were unable to prove intentional conduct, so David Pitts was charged with second-degree murder. David was sentenced to 18 years and 4 months in prison, the maximum sentence under state law. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Victoria Nasirova. On September 2, 2016, police received a call from Olga Tsvik, 35, a Ukrainian immigrant who worked as a beautician, who reported that several valuables had gone missing from her bedroom. She explained to police that she had recently been to the hospital, where she experienced severe dizziness and nausea, with occasional loss of consciousness. Even after returning home, she continued to appear distracted. During the investigation, the police conducted a detailed interrogation of Olga. She recalled a recent troubling encounter with a client named Victoria Nasirova, who came to her home and insisted on urgent eyelash extensions. Victoria had been in contact with the salon before and often acted as if she and Olga were friends. However, on that day, Victoria asked to come to Olga's home to get eyelash extensions. Olga explained that she only worked at the salon and did not accept home customers, but Victoria deliberately ignored her explanation and insisted on urgent eyelash extensions, and Olga finally agreed. Olga later told the police that Victoria had tried to ask her out several times, but she had refused. Another notable detail was that Victoria looked very similar to Olga, which often made Olga feel uncomfortable. During the investigation, it was discovered that Victoria had shown up at Olga's apartment with 3 pieces of cheesecake from the best local bakery. Victoria ate 2 and insisted that Olga have a third, to which Olga eventually agreed. After a brief tea party with cheesecakes, Olga felt unwell. Once Victoria left, Olga became extremely nauseous and lost consciousness for about 30 minutes. When she woke up, she called 911 and was taken to the hospital by ambulance. However, the doctors found nothing wrong in her blood tests. Upon returning home, Olga discovered that some of her valuables were missing and reported the theft to the police. Police were initially skeptical of her story, suspecting that Olga may have been under the influence of drugs, which were causing her to hallucinate. Her unusual behavior and appearance contributed to their suspicions. Police concluded that her account of the incident, including her reference to a woman who resembled her, was likely fabricated. Olga firmly denied using drugs and presented her argument convincingly. She believed that her issues stemmed from a piece of cheesecake she had eaten, suggesting it might have been poisoned. The police quickly inspected the scene and discovered a box from a local bakery in the trash. Olga identified the box as the cheesecake Victoria had brought. The police collected it as evidence because it still had crumbs left inside. Analysis of the cheesecake could determine whether it was the cause of Olga's problems. The examination of the cheesecake revealed no abnormalities. Despite this, the Olga insisted that the dessert was the reason for her illness. She mentioned that she had visited the hospital, where doctors examined her but found nothing unusual. In response to inquiries about her condition and the tests conducted, police contacted the hospital. However, the doctors declined to share information due to privacy policies. The police interpreted this refusal as further evidence to doubt the Olga's claims. Additionally, they could not locate the client mentioned by Olga, leading to a postponement of the case until more information becomes available. A neighbor provided details after noticing a suspicious woman near Olga's apartment the following day. The woman appeared several times, lingering around Olga's apartment until she encountered the neighbor. The strange woman said that her friend Olga was sick and then left in a hurry. Concerned, the neighbor noticed that Olga's apartment door was open and decided to check on her. When she entered, the neighbor found the apartment uncomfortably hot, with the heating system on full blast despite the hot summer weather. Olga was alive but unconscious in bed, dressed strangely, in a revealing bra and sweatpants. The police felt that someone had deliberately changed her clothes. Scattered around her were powerful pills, suggesting that Olga may have taken them with the intention of ending her life. The neighbor quickly called 911, describing the strange woman as dark-haired, attractive, and very similar to Olga. After receiving new information, the police were convinced that the woman who resembled Olga was real and not a figment of Olga's imagination. Therefore, the police intensified their efforts to investigate the case. The police suspected that Victoria Nasirova, who was involved in a cheesecake in the previous case, was involved in this case. The police began searching for Victoria, but they had no clues or even any photos of her. However, a private investigator, who had been monitoring Victoria's activities for a long time, tracked Victoria down on the internet and contacted the police. He located Victoria, where she was advertising her escort services on a dating website and social media. The private investigator suspected that she used these platforms to find victims for her crimes. Her methods were effective. Victoria would meet her victims, drug them with psychotropic substances to render them unconscious, and then steal their valuables. Meanwhile, Olga eventually recovered from her traumatic experience. After leaving the hospital, she shared her story of poisoning on social media. Soon after, one of her clients mentioned a man named Ruben Barakov who had gone through a similar situation. Ruben owned a dry cleaning business and had met a woman named Victoria on a Russian dating site a few months before Olga suffered cheese poisoning. Victoria had invited Ruben to her home, bragging about her cooking skills. He accepted the invitation, but as soon as he tasted her food, he passed out. Victoria then rummaged through his pockets, taking an expensive watch, cash, and cards. Ruben was under the influence of a powerful psychoactive substance and truly believed that it had nearly killed him. Victoria then took him to a dry cleaner's. She explained to Ruben's colleagues that he was drunk and she left. When Ruben regained consciousness, he realized that he had been robbed. The private investigator suspected the situation was much more serious and that the two victims were lucky to be alive. In 2017, he worked with a client from Russia who asked him to help track down a dangerous criminal. Nadia Ford contacted the private investigator after her biological mother, Alla Alexienko, went missing. Nadia currently lives in New York, USA, but was born in Russia. Nadia, who is from Krasnodar, was raised by her mother, Alla, who worked hard to provide for her children. Nadia had dreamed of living in the United States since she was a child, and her dream came true when she came to study in America in 2007. While there, she met a man, married him, and took his last name, Ford. However, their marriage did not last, and they eventually divorced. Nadia chose to stay in the United States and successfully built her life there. She kept a close relationship with her mother, Alla, who was living alone at the time. Alla sold her house and then moved to a new apartment. In early 2013, after moving into a new apartment, Alla had a new neighbor named Victoria Nasirova. Despite the significant age difference, Victoria quickly became friends with Alla. Alla shared stories about her daughter's life in the United States, which sparked Victoria's interest in visiting America and meeting Nadia. Alla then arranged for them to meet. In September 2013, Victoria went to New York, where she met Nadia, and they became close friends. Nadia was a kind and pleasant woman. Victoria sought her advice on how to stay in the United States, and Nadia shared a few tips. However, Victoria's plans did not work out, and she eventually returned to Russia. Despite this, she maintained a close relationship with Alla. In the fall of 2014, Victoria planned another trip to the United States, and she told Alla that she could help send gifts to Nadia. Trusting Victoria, Alla happily agreed. Alla then brought $6,000 in cash and valuables, including 2 expensive mink coats, to send to Nadia. Victoria then repeatedly postponed her trip to the United States for various reasons, leaving Alla worried about whether she would actually go and what would happen to her gifts. Worried, Alla called her daughter Nadia to express her concerns. Nadia reassured her mother and suggested that she ask Victoria to return her belongings. On October 4, 2014, Alla called Nadia with the good news that she had finally spoken to Victoria, who agreed to return her valuables. However, this never happened, and Alla soon disappeared. Nadia kept calling her mother, but she didn't answer. This was unusual since they were in contact every day. Worried, Nadia contacted Victoria to ask about her mother. Victoria confirmed that she had seen Alla, and they had talked and had tea together. Victoria then left, never saw Alla again. Victoria mentioned that Alla was planning to go somewhere, but she didn't know where. Victoria also tried to contact Alla and even visited Alla's apartment to check on her, but there was no sign of her mother being home. Alla was still unreachable. After a few days, Nadia and her brother received a number of unusual text messages from an unknown number, supposedly from their mother Alla. The messages stated that there was no need to look for her because she was happy. However, the way the messages were written was inconsistent with Alla's style, which raised their concerns. Nadia realized that something was definitely wrong and decided to book the next flight to Russia to assist in the investigation into her mother's disappearance. Upon arriving in Krasnodar, Nadia went to her mother's apartment, but it was stripped of valuables that Victoria was supposed to return. There was no trace of her mother. Concerned, Nadia quickly contacted the police and reported her mother's disappearance. She informed the police about her suspicions regarding Victoria, a neighbor of her mother who had become suspiciously close to her and failed to return Alla belongings. It soon became clear that Victoria had a motive to harm Alla. The police were interested in the information and devised a plan. Nadia called Victoria and pressed Victoria for information about her mother's whereabouts. Victoria, angered by Nadia's questions, shouted that her mother was still alive, but Victoria did not know where she was. The police, who had been listening in on the call, decided to approach Victoria. At her home, she successfully convinced the police that she was not involved and claimed that Nadia's accusations were baseless, with no evidence against her. Meanwhile, Nadia returned to her mother's apartment to investigate. She noticed that the place was surprisingly clean, with no dust, as if it had just been thoroughly cleaned, despite her mother's absence for several days. This raised questions for Nadia. Who could have cleaned the apartment? Additionally, she discovered that several valuable items, including jewelry and $50,000 in cash, were missing. Concerned, Nadia decided to report this to the police. The police, after speaking with Victoria, tried to persuade her that her mother had taken the money and jewelry on a trip and would be back soon. However, Nadia did not buy this explanation. She sensed that her mother was in danger and that it had something to do with Victoria. Nadia reached out to all her mother's friends and relatives, but no one knew where her mother was. In her desperation, Nadia printed flyers with her mother's photo and posted them all over the neighborhood. She also drove around the city, visiting her mother's favorite places, but her efforts were unproductive. Nadia contacted Victoria, begging her to return her mother and expressing her willingness to do anything, even offer a reward. However, Victoria denied any involvement. Despite this, Nadia remained hopeful that her mother was still alive and continued to search. She regularly went to the police for updates, but there was no information about her mother. Determined to find answers, Nadia hired a private investigator. After investigating, the private investigator discovered that Victoria had rented a car from a service center on the day Alla went missing. He checked the car's information and reviewed surveillance camera footage from October 5, 2014. The videos show a car driving on a highway outside the city. There were two people inside, Victoria, who was driving, and Alla Alexinko, motionless in the front passenger seat. She shared this information with the police, who confirmed that Victoria had rented the car and brought her in for questioning. Victoria admitted that she had driven the rental car that morning, October 5, but she denied that there was anyone else in the car with her. Victoria agreed to take a lie detector test. After completing the test, she was released, but the results later showed that she had failed, leading the police to consider her a prime suspect in the case. Before the police could arrest her, Victoria fled the country without notifying the police. They began searching for Victoria. Nadia remained in Russia for another 6 months to assist in the investigation, holding out hope that her mother was still alive. She also contacted Interpol for help in finding Victoria. Police traced the rental car to a dense forest in Armavir, which turned out to be Victoria's hometown. This is where the search for Alla began. Nadia's hopes of her mother's safe return were dashed in April 2015, when police informed her of the tragic news. Her charred remains were found in the same forest, about a 3-hour drive from where Alla went missing. Nadia was able to identify her mother through her dental records, as the rest of her body was badly burned and unrecognizable. The cause of death could not be determined. Following the identification, an arrest warrant was issued for Victoria Nasirova, and her case was referred to Interpol. After her mother's funeral in Krasnodar, Nadia returned to the United States. She found it difficult to cope with her mother's death and was unable to work for a long period. Eventually, she gathered her strength and made a promise to her mother that she would seek justice and ensure that those responsible for Alla's death would be punished. One day, Nadia discovered a photo of Victoria on social media. The wanted woman was showing off her lavish lifestyle in Mexico. After discovering this, Nadia contacted the U.S. police to report Victoria's whereabouts, and they began an investigation. At this point, Nadia hired one of the top private detectives in the United States to speed up the investigation. A wealthy friend of Nadia covered the cost of the detective's services, which she could not afford since she had not been working for several months while searching for her mother. The private detective thoroughly examined Victoria's social media photos and was able to confirm that she was already in the U.S. One of the selfies, taken while wearing sunglasses, showed a reflection of a car's dashboard. After examining hundreds, even thousands of cars, the private investigator determined it was a Chrysler 300. The private investigator was able to determine that the last photos were taken in Sheepshead Bay, a neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York. By checking a database of cars in that area, he was able to narrow down his search and identify a suspect. He discovered that Victoria was living with her boyfriend in an apartment complex just 5 blocks from Nadia, and that the Chrysler was registered to her new boyfriend. Victoria was probably unaware that the case had escalated to the point where Interpol had a global warrant for her arrest, which is why she felt safe posting her photos online. The private investigator located the boyfriend and contacted him. It was discovered that he had been poisoned by Victoria. She followed her usual methods of poisoning her boyfriend and even poisoned his beagle, which unfortunately died. Victoria's freedom poses a danger, as her potential victims could increase. The police searched Victoria's apartment and discovered Olga Tzvik's identity card. This discovery sheds light on why Olga was targeted by Victoria. Victoria needed money and valuables, but she also needed an ID that, with her temporary visa about to expire, she was looking to use someone else's ID to avoid returning to Russia, where she would have to stand trial. Police believe she intended to kill Olga, the real owner of the passport, to steal their identity. Fortunately, Olga survived thanks to the quick action of a neighbor. Additionally, the box containing the remains of the cheesecake was sent for analysis, marking a significant breakthrough in the investigation. The investigation returned to the lab, where researchers analyzed the cheesecake. It was determined that Victoria had used a sedative, but she had used a higher dose, which rendered her victims unconscious. Olga was lucky to survive after eating the cheesecake. The high temperature in her apartment was no accident. Heat amplifies the effects of the drug and can even be fatal. Victoria apparently knew this, so she increased the temperature in the house and tried to dress Olga in warmer clothes. But luckily, Olga was discovered by neighbors in time. After her arrest, Victoria denied all allegations against her, including the murder of Alla, who was Nadia's mother. She also rejected claims that she attempted to murder Olga Tzvik and other victims. Victoria had previously been a suspect in the theft of 2 fur items in May 2016, but that case did not progress. Additional incidents emerged involving her in thefts, where she would meet men online, visit their homes, drug them, and rob them. Most of the men chose not to report these crimes to the police due to concerns about publicity, allowing Victoria to evade consequences. The trial was delayed for a long time. The case finally went to court in January 2023, attracting considerable media and public attention. Victoria chose not to testify at the trial and remained silent. The court could not discuss the details of Alla's death because it happened in another country. Victoria's defense argued that there was no evidence that Victoria had poisoned the cheesecake and forced Olga to eat it. Victoria herself ate 2 pieces in front of Olga and had no problems. The prosecution then argued that Victoria had only added poison to 1 piece of cheesecake, specifically the 3rd piece she offered Olga. She ate the other 2 pieces without the poison. This misled Olga. After a lengthy deliberation, the jury found Victoria Nasirova guilty of 2nd-degree murder. Although the maximum sentence for the crime is 25 years, the judge shortened her sentence to 21 years. By law, she could apply for parole after serving 15 years. Victoria faced harsh prison life. She frequently complained about poor food and inadequate medical care. During her incarceration, she was attacked, leaving her scarred and nearly blind. After the attack, Victoria sued the prison, alleging that guards were negligent in failing to support her. The case ended in a $325,000 settlement. In a recent interview from prison, Victoria denied any wrongdoing, including Alla's murder. She claimed that she had nothing to do with poisoning beautician Olga with the cheesecake, explaining that she had eaten the cheesecake herself and had not become ill. Victoria said that she had only shared a piece of cheesecake with Olga and had not forced her to eat it. After completing her prison sentence in the United States, Victoria will be deported to Russia, where she will face trial for Alla's murder. Her daughter Nadia said she was relieved that Victoria was in prison and would not be able to escape justice.